Warrior Lore. Chapter 39. Killing Another Profound Heaven Cultivator. Chapter 39. Killing Another Profound Heaven Cultivator. You again. Elder Jin squinted his eyes at the savage moon in shock. Why do you have that demonic treasure? What happened to Elder Yun? Grinning, Zhuofan pointed Savage Moon at Elder Jin. Oh, you recognize it. Jin Fan's mind was in chaos. Don't tell me how can that old guy die at the hands of a pup? But the more he looked at the demonic treasure, the more Jin Fan felt shock, hatred, and above all, confusion. Be that as it may, but no Hell Valley's demonic treasure was allowed to fall into an outsider's hand. Elder Jin then saw the naked killing intent in Zhuofan's eyes. Aware of the other's intention, Zhuofan snickered as he sent a whisper to Lei Yuding. Listen, aim for the old man's heart and close your eyes as you attack with lightning finger. Ignore everything else. She turned to him in shock. How can I hit him if I close my eyes? We won't win against a profound heaven cultivator regardless. But she soon recalled Zhuofan's unscrupulous character and understood his intention. The only reason he saved her was to use her as a live bait to throw into the jaws of death. Lei Yuding nodded despondently. She was already prepared to die when she made the decision to come here. Zhuofan curled his finger, making blood infant return to his body unnoticed as he shouted, Now? Zhuofan went first and Lei Yuding followed his plan by closing her eyes and using lightning finger. Startled, Elder Jin didn't expect them to move first. But he didn't mind, as a profound heaven cultivator's defense wasn't something a chi condensation cultivator could pierce. The only danger to his life was posed by that savage moon. As such, Zhuofan had his complete focus. Lei Yuding charged the lightning with her eyes closed, ignoring everything, while Zhuofan flitted left and right. Elder Jin sneered, turning a blind eye to the girl when she was near Elder Jin. Zhuofan flashed in front of her and attacked with Savage Moon. It was a simple thing for Jin Fan to grab Zhuofan's hand and snap it in two. Humph. Don't think a petty diversion is enough to trick my eyes. I've lived far longer than you. Smoke and mirrors won't work on me. Jin Fan sneered, yet it still has. Zhuofan's smile remained. Suddenly, Elder Jin's heart was filled with unease before he could make clear as to why. A red light flew from Zhuofan into his body from Zhuofan's broken arm. Blood spurted out like a stream and dyed the trees red. Jin Fan watched Zhuofan with rage. It was you back then? He now knew what had entered his body not too long ago and allowed the three elders from Veiled Dragon Pavilion to use that chance and tear one of his arms. Zhuofan grinned. You're brave. I'll give you that. To rob me of my arm. Jin Fan gnashed his teeth. Once I get out of your demonic creature's control, I'll tear you to pieces. Elder Jin focused all his yuan qi into his body while talking. Zhuofan smiled. Despite sensing the increasing pressure on Blood Infant, Elder Jin, you've been tricked yet again. Lightning crackled as Lei Yuding's fingers came from behind Zhuofan and struck Jin Fan's chest. Watching Zhuofan's eerie smile with doubt, Elder Jin's eyes bulged out from grievance and unwillingness to die like this. Elder Jin, you were wrong. I was the distraction. Zhuofan smiled despite the blood leaking from his mouth. You only paid attention to Savage Moon, but you forgot your wounded state. Weakened as you are now, you no longer have the same amount of yuan qi as before. Ha ha ha. The fear in Elder Jin's eyes grew thick. Such a cunning and vicious youth. How horrifying. This was how the expert Jin Fan breathed his last breath. Zhuofan used himself as bait while leaving the final blow to Lei Yuding. Each step was filled with perils. The slightest mistake, the slightest hesitation would have meant death. Yet when Zhuofan was involved, everything they did was as if they were dancing to his tune, resulting in Elder Jin's ultimate demise. It was especially so when Zhuofan blocked Elder Jin from noticing the real danger hiding behind him. Lei Yuding's lightning fingers, two chi condensation juniors, killing a profound heaven expert. If anyone spoke of this, none would believe it. Plop. Zhuofan collapsed in his own blood. Lei Yuding was crying in despair when she saw this. She thought Zhuofan wanted her to act as bait, but it exceeded her expectations when he took the most dangerous role onto himself. All kinds of emotions swept her heart, pain, warmth, and even something Yang Ming never managed to stir. Zhuofan, forgive me? Lei Yuding kneeled at his side. Watching his pale face, Zhuofan waved. This isn't your fault. When Blood Infant was wounded, I also suffered internal injuries. He recalled Blood Infant from Elder Jin's corpse. This time, it'll take a lot more time to heal. His wounds mattered little when compared to blood infants, which represented his life. This only worked to increase Lei Yuding's flow of tears. She now knew that the demonic creature wasn't a treasure, but something bound to his life, yet even in such a perilous state, he chose to take a life-threatening hit for her. She began to see Zhuo Fan with different eyes. But Zhuo Fan himself couldn't care less. Zhuo Fan pointed at Jian Fan. Search him. A Hell Valley elder has to have valuable things on him. All right. Lei Yuding used her highly dexterous hands to complete this task with such skill that Zhuo Fan couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. A bandit sure is skilled. Once Jian Fan was picked clean, Lei Yuding returned to Zhuo Fan. In her entire life, this was the first time she ever lowered her head in shame from doing something so unbecoming of her. But he couldn't care less about the reason why she was hiding her face as she strewed the things before Zhuo Fan. She kept avoiding his eyes. Zhuo Fan found it odd but didn't care, and started to rummage through Elder Jin's stuff. The first and foremost thing that caught his eye was the storage ring, and soon found what he was looking for inside. A light flashed and 2 jade slips appeared in his hand. Lei Clan's spiritual ranked martial art, Lightning Finger, and Kai Clan's martial art, Wind Kick. He was clueless as to the secret involving the 3 clans' martial arts, but did not hesitate in taking them into his own ring. What was left were some cultivation methods, martial arts, and spirit stones. Zhuo Fan, as a former demonic emperor, couldn't care less about those, and threw the ring to Lei Yuding. According to bandits' rule, half belongs to you. Lei Yuding shook her head. The old man was your kill. They are yours. I don't want them. He has nothing of value. Zhuo Fan smiled and turned his eyes to a bag. It was only as big as a palm, but Zhuo Fan knew of its remarkable quality. It was a bag that could store living creatures. And what laid within was none other than the soul-devouring crow, stashing it in his chest. Zhuo Fan smiled pleasantly. It held the largest interest to him. Who knew? He might even discover the secret of the purple lightning gold eye. Zhuo Fan. At least take the ring. Lei Yuding was shocked at the ring's contents and still decided to give it to Zhuo Fan. I know Luo clan is wealthy, but there are some spirit-ranked martial arts and cultivation methods inside which are of far greater value than mere spirit stones. It will provide great help in restoring your clan. Zhuo Fan shrugged as he weighed the ring. Such trashy things I have in heaps. There's nothing rare or great about them. If you don't want it, I'll just throw it. He was about to do just that when Lei Yuding took the ring from his hand. How can you be such a wastrel, to not even want spirit-ranked martial arts? How did you manage to become a steward anyway? With how you act, Luo clan's money will get flushed down the drain. Zhuo Fan smiled as he put Jian Fan's corpse into his ring. Time to head back. Veiled Dragon Pavilion has some explaining to do. Lei Yuding nodded and rushed to support him. As Zhuo Fan was far too weakened, he could only lean onto her shoulder, tinting her cheeks red in the processed weight. Zhuo Fan stopped to look around. Where's Yang Ming? Lei Yuding looked everywhere, but there was no sight of Yang Ming. They forgot about him in the heat of the battle. Curses. He got away. Lei Yuding gnashed her teeth. Zhuo Fan shook his head. No need to bother with an insect. But then he recalled his disciple, Zhao Chun, and killing intent flashed in his eyes. But even insects can spell trouble. The next time I see him, he's dead. Chapter 40. Shock. Chapter 40. Shock. The sun's warm rays shone from the east as Long Jie and Long Kue led hundreds of Veiled Dragon Pavilion guards back to the branch. Even tiredness couldn't hide the prideful air they carried themselves with. Not only did they win the battle with Hell Valley, but did it spectacularly. Long Jie, with 3rd and 5th Elder, stood at the gates watching their return with negligible casualties. Uncles Long Jie and Long Kue bowed with a smile. The 3 elders were pleased. Little Kue, Jie, how was your fight? Long Kue was the first to report. As the uncles predicted, after you chased the elders from Hell Valley, a large force came to attack us only to be defeated by us. Barely a scant few bone-tempering cultivators escaped. Well done. Long Jie shouted his approval. Your improvement has been great lately. Magnificent for you to not only lead your own team, but to also wipe out the enemy. 3rd brother, when you return to the estate, make sure to report the 2's merit to Pavilion Lord. Ha ha. Long Jie's laughter shook the air as if he was relieved of the past year's pressure. 3rd elder stroked his beard with a smile. This huge merit the two achieved for Veiled Dragon Pavilion was the first in their lives. Such accomplishment was always followed by a sense of honor and pride. Oh, right. Third Elder furrowed his brow. Do you know what was the cause of that tremendous explosion last night? Long Jie and Long Kuei were also puzzled. That sound shook the world, and I thought it was from Third Elder's fight with Hell Valley's elders. Wasn't it? Long Kuei asked. The three elders' expression turned grave as they shook their heads. The explosion shook the hearts of everyone last night, instantly becoming a mystery as to what caused it. Oh, didn't the Luo clan stay hidden in their small courtyard all this time? Let's go ask them. Long Jio slapped his head as he turned to Third Elder, nodding. Third Elder walked in the small courtyard's direction, followed by the others. Long Kuei smirked. The battle must have been so brutal last night that a tiny clan like them were scared to even poke their heads. They probably hadn't seen anything. None spoke while Long Jie shook his head. They clearly approved of her stance, as they were only going there to ask for clues. When they arrived before the guest room of the small courtyard, they saw Luo clan's members standing before Zhua Fan's door with worried faces. With them were 3 more people, and one among them was in the profound heaven stage. It can't be that yesterday was because... The 3 elders were startled, hurrying to pay their respects to Lei Yuntian. May I inquire brother's name? Long Ju looked at him while being confused. When did Luo clan get an expert? Lei Yuntian returned the gesture as he knew of Veiled Dragon Pavilion's might. I am Lei Yuntian from Blackwind Mountain. It's an honor to meet the famous Veiled Dragon Pavilion. I am fortunate to come face to face with elders. Long Ju nodded, having stayed in Windgaze City for so long. He knew the city had many clans with different power levels, but only the recently established Sun Clan along with the previous Luo clan, Kai Clan and Blackwind Mountain's Lei Clan were first-rated clans, of course. This applied to a small town like Windgaze City, not including the 7 houses, as the Lei Clan now had a profound heaven expert. The Blackwind Mountain's influence would expand like never before. Despite how Bone-Tempering Stage and Profound Heaven Stage were but a stage apart, the fact that a clan had a profound heaven expert as overseer, it now became a second-rate clan on this continent. Those that lacked such power were mere third-rate or fallen clans. Lei Clan can now be considered as the most outstanding clan in Windgaze City. Clan head Lei, I wonder what are you? Long Ju roamed his eyes over the people gathered before Zhua Fan's room. Lei Yuntian sighed. Steward Zhua was hurt last night and is unclear if he will survive. What? This place was under attack too. Third Elder was shocked. He thought that Long Jie and Long Kuei had blocked all Hell Valley's men last night, but it seemed that wasn't the case. Did they prepare 2 teams? Humph. A sudden snort of disdain came from behind. Wasn't Zhua Fan always acting so high and mighty? Didn't he boast he'd surpassed the 7 houses in 10 years? So useless, to only end up on his deathbed from a bunch of thieves. Luo clan and Lei clan all glared at the speaker, but Long Kuei just rolled her eyes. Quiet, little Kuei. Long Jio shot her a glare, and Long Kuei was forced to remain silent, looking apologetic toward Lei Yuntian. Long Jio spoke. Please excuse her rash behavior. Just who could it be, powerful enough to injure Zhua Fan to such a state, even with a profound heaven expert such as yourself protecting him? What? Me protecting him? Lei Yuntian was taken aback, but then shook his head. I am ashamed to say that I only advanced last night and still lack the power to defend Steward Zhua. To others, Lei Yuntian was the strongest here, and it was natural for him to protect everyone. But only he was the clearest as to who protected who last night. But the enemy was a profound heaven expert that called himself Elder Yun. What? Yu Yunqing? Third Elder and Long Jio were startled as the former muttered. I never thought that he'd also come. But then he turned with joy at Lei Yuntian. Brother Lei, you're amazing. That man was one of Hell Valley's 12 elders, having entered the profound heaven stage for decades. Yet you just advanced to profound heaven stage and defeated him. Impressive indeed. The other 2 elders also showed their admiration. Lei Yuntian blushed and said with a cough, Third Elder is exaggerating. I couldn't even take a single blow from him. Then how did you all pass the night unharmed? Long Ju asked, scratching his head. Lei Yuntian looked at Zhua Fan's door. It's all thanks to Steward Zhua. If not for him, everyone here would have undoubtedly perished. You're saying Zhua Fan held Yu Yunqing back by himself, all night? Everyone was stunned, Long Kuei included. But he's just a chi condensation cultivator. Long Zhi refuted. Lei Yuntian shrugged at a loss. I am clear on that, but so what? The last words choked Long Zhi. Lei Yuntian said it as if it was a common occurrence for a Qi condensation cultivator to fight off a profound heaven cultivator for an entire night and… Third Elder clenched his fists, staring at Lei Yuntian. You mean to tell us Zhuo Fan forced Elder Yu Yunqing into retreating? Retreat? Frowning, Lei Yuntian showed a trace of fear as he relived the last night's events. You are underestimating Zhuo Fan far too much. Underestimate? How? Even if one scoured the continent, would he ever find an instance where a Qi condensation cultivator forced a profound heaven expert into retreating? We only made the most reasonable guess, yet even this is such a far-fetched exaggeration that not even Zhuo Fan would believe. If not for you mentioning it, we'd have never conceived such ideas. The three elders swallowed dryly. With hearts in their throat, the fool didn't even have time to flee. Killed in one move by Zhuo Fan. Lei Yuntian sighed. What? The elders were overwhelmed with shock. This was unprecedented. Long Kuei and Long Jia were also dumbfounded. Long Zhi's hands began to shiver without his knowledge. Are you saying Zhuo Fan was behind the huge explosion last night? He killed a Hell Valley's profound heaven elder and got out with a light wound? Lei Yuntian saw their eager expressions and wanted to nod, but frowned instead with a shake of his head. What was it then? Long Zhi was anxious and his aura leaked, forcing the others to take a few steps back. Lei Yuntian sighed. I told you not to underestimate the kid. He killed Hell Valley's elder, but not at the cost of injury. Only his Yuan Qi was depleted. That's impossible. He came out unscathed? Long Zhi was battered with one shock after another that even he didn't know what he was saying. But then how did he get hurt? Bam! A pale-faced Zhuo Fan slammed the door open and snapped at Long Zhi. Isn't it because of you, bro Zhi? Zhuo Fan. Some were shocked, some were glad, some were amazed, but most were filled with doubts as they turned to him. Are you all right? Luo Yunchang was worried. All right, my ass. Zhuo Fan snorted as he glared at everyone who was present. Here I am trying to keep my life, and you people had to yap on and on. You think one can get well like this? They all started getting embarrassed and lowered their heads. Only the three elders looked at him at a loss. Zhuo Fan secretly snorted. Bro Zhi, didn't you want to know how I got hurt? It's all because of him. Zhuo Fan took out a cold corpse, shocking them all. The ones most shocked were, of course, the three elders Condor Jian Fan. Chapter 41. Purple Lightning Gold Eye's Secret. Chapter 41. Purple Lightning Gold Eye's Secret. The fear in Jian Fan's eyes hadn't dissipated even after his death and was clearly visible for everyone as they looked at his corpse that laid stiff on the ground. What manner of death could have evoked such expression from a monster who roamed the continent unhindered? How? Condor Jian Fan is actually dead. Who killed him? Long Zhi was unnerved and stammered. Zhuo Fan sneered. Is there a need to ask when I was the one who took out his corpse? They all looked at Zhuo Fan with a stranger's eyes. Each guessed as such, but none dared to believe it. This monster had even escaped the Veiled Dragon Pavilion's three elders' joint attack. I knew that there was a deep grudge between him and Bro Zhi. Since I chanced upon him, I killed him. Flicking off imaginary dust from himself, Zhuo Fan smiled. Bro Zhi, please don't take offense from meddling in your affairs. How can I? Long Zhi panted and was staring at the corpse with bloodshot eyes. This monster ruined my eye and my future. I can hardly contain myself from drinking his blood and feasting on his flesh. How can I blame you for taking revenge in my stead? Brother Zhuo. Suddenly, Long Zhi cupped his hands. From this day forth, I shall treat you as a sworn brother. As long as you're in my domain, you just need to ask and I'll do it. Sigh, Bro Zhi was too courteous. I barely did anything. Zhuo Fan dismissed him with a wave, but that little movement stirred his wound and winced. Long Zhi appeared next to him in a flash. Don't move, brother. Here are some recovery pills. In 3 days you'll be up and about. Long Zhi took out a few small bottles and placed them in Zhuo Fan's hand. With how caring Long Zhi was, the other elders stared at Zhuo Fan in amazement. Long Kuei pouted. Feeling her heart dumped in vinegar, they just wiped out Hell Valley's men and earned great merit that even the three elders were overjoyed. yet it paled in comparison with Zhuofan, who killed 2 of Hell Valley's elders. Humph! Who knows what trick he pulled to get so lucky and snatch their heads? How could a chi condensation cultivator ever kill a profound heaven expert? Long Kuei muttered in jealousy, but everyone heard her third elder glared, but then shook his head, yet Zhuofan laughed. It is true that it was by luck that I encountered the one-armed elder and got his head, bad luck in fact, because I had just then killed a profound heaven expert and was out of Yuan Qi. But this also made him underestimate me. How else could I have killed the wounded elder Jian? If it were any other time, wouldn't the elder kill me with but a wave of his hand? Sigh, last night I had the worst luck. Unlike some people, who only had to lead their men to ensure their safety, Zhuofan sighed as Long Kuei's face flushed red. Lei Yuding giggled. She was clear on what happened last night. Zhuofan was indeed amazing, forcing the elder to act as he wanted. But amazing as he was, such an instance wasn't going to repeat itself every time. Zhuofan said that just to spite Long Kuei, I am better and stronger than you. My merit is also greater, all coming from one well-placed hit, while you can only yap your mouth. The 3 elders laughed as they shook their heads. They knew that Zhuofan succeeded in bringing down a profound heaven expert only through special means, and not like how he bragged about killing because he met him, but the fact remained. Him killing 2 such experts in a single night shook the elders' core. Old Gio, take care of Brother Zhu's wound. We will also add a few hundred guards around the premises while I and Brother Wu report back to the estate. We must notify Pavilion Lord. Long Zhu nodded while Long Kuei and Long Jie froze. Why even third elder is calling Zhuofan brother? Zhuofan adapted to the change on the spot. Bro San, Bro Wu, take care. As the people left, Long Gio was wondering what could Zhuofan want to know so urgently. Bro Gio, I have a gift for you. Gift? Long Gio only laughed. Brother, I'm not trying to discourage you, but the Luo clan hasn't got anything I could take interest in. Or is it that you have another ancient array? Zhuofan shook his head. In your dreams. That array alone is worth 10 million at the minimum. Do you think they're easy to come by? But I'm pretty sure you're going to like this gift. Zhuofan took out a bag, frowning. Long Zhu didn't understand until Zhuofan opened the bag and a crow landed on his shoulder. Jian Fan's soul-devouring crow? Correct? Ever since that old guy died, this crow has been without an owner. I'm sure Bro Zhu wouldn't need long to turn it into your spirit animal, always there to protect you. Long Zhu's eyes began to glisten. The title of God Eye Long Zhu lost all its power ever since his eye was robbed. Now that he had the crow, it was as if he recovered his mystic eye. Brother, thank you for your kind intention. Long Zhu's eye trembled from the heartfelt gratitude. Zhuofan continued. Bro Zhu, there's just one thing I am unclear about. Since you trained one eye in purple lightning gold eye, why couldn't you do the same for the other? Sigh, brother. This mystic eye of mine was gained through a chance encounter, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Long Zhu sighed, recalling his youth. This mystic eye wasn't cultivated through a cultivation method from Veiled Dragon Pavilion. It was something I found through luck. Long Zhu considered Zhuofan as one of his closest friends. Thus, he became the first listener to this secret Long Zhu had buried for such a long time. Brother, do you know of the 3 danger zones on this continent? After Zhuofan shook his head, Long Zhu smiled. You can go anywhere you want across the continent, except for the 3 danger zones. Regardless of your strength, you'll find helpless against the dangers in there. Zhuofan nodded from how serious Long Zhu looked, but didn't take the warning to heart. The zones are Lightning Canyon, Ice Mountain, and Fire Pit. Long Zhu stared at Zhuofan in all seriousness, but then laughed in the end. Never mind. Even if you want to go, you still can't. Only if your luck is sky high will you enter one. Why? Because these zones appear at random. Today, they might be in the east and tomorrow in the west. Regardless of where they descend, it will cause a terrible tornado that draws in all who dared approach, while also trapping them inside. That must be an array which an expert had deployed. If one didn't know how the array operated, they would have no hope of finding the entrance. Zhuofan asked, then how did you get out? Long Zhu nodded with a deep look. You're smart, brother. Yes, in my youth I chanced upon the Lightning Canyon. At that time, the tornado swept me away and all I could see was a world of purple lightning. Every single expert there fell under the purple strikes. Just recalling it sends shivers down my spine. Then the oddest thing happened. The strike that was meant for me hit in my eye. While I was unharmed, all that I could feel from my eye was scorching heat. Zhua Fan now understood, as it was stated in the Nine Serenities' secret records regarding the Heavenly Emperor's purple lightning gold eye. Everything was subjected to be destroyed under its gaze, all except the eye. This was why, when the purple lightning struck Longju's eye, he was unharmed. Perhaps because of my will to survive, I gave it my all in fighting for my life. I was aware of the purple lightning's power, but still wanted to live. It was at that moment that a man's voice reached me. He was reciting some method, and I, in my confused state, mimicked his words. It shocked me in the end when my eye released purple lightning. It may have been because of the eye that the purple lightning no longer struck me. Finally, when the tornado passed, only I survived. But ever since I was robbed of my eye, and because of the frantic situation when I gained it, I no longer recalled the words that man recited and had no way of forming another mystic eye. Longju sighed while Zhua Fan nodded. Lightning Canyon was a remnant the Heavenly Emperor left behind and contained his cultivation method. I have to find it. If I add the Nine Serenities Emperor's legacy with Heavenly Emperors, with 2 of the 3 ancient emperors' legacy in my hands, none can contest me. I didn't reincarnate in vain. No one would ever imagine that a powerful emperor stage expert would leave his remnant in the mortal world. Ha ha ha. Zhua Fan wanted to cackle, but was sensible enough to refrain since Longju was next to him. Chapter 42. Resisting. Chapter 42. Resisting. Their talk took the entire day. Once Zhua Fan got hold of all the information that interested him, he walked Longju out, after which he entered seclusion for a month to heal with Longju's recovery pills. He was back to full health in 10 days, but was forced to spend the remaining time to patch up Blood Infant's precarious state. A month later, Zhua Fan came out of his room stretching his limbs and enjoying the fresh air. Moreover, just a few days ago, he and Blood Infant entered the 5th layer of Qi condensation, just that it was a pity one of the 2 elders from Hell Valley died for naught. He truly hoped he could absorb the elder's Yuan Qi at the time with it. He'd be in the bone-tempering stage by now. Steward Zhua. Xiao Chui shrieked in joy seeing him, but then bolted. Zhua Fan was stumped, feeling his face unconsciously. Did something change about me? Why did she run as soon as she saw me? What's so scary about me? I'm not a man-eating monster. But he soon had it all figured out. I must have been too rough on her when I ripped their clothes that time, and this girl is now afraid of me. The same as how Luo Yunhai was before. Zhua Fan snickered. I was kinda too hard on both the kids. Brother Zhua, are you feeling better? This time it was the uncouth Captain Pang, Old Pang. Captain Pang was the only one he admitted being his friend since he reincarnated. Zhua Fan started to miss him after not seeing each other for a month, however. Just as Captain Pang was about to give him a friendly hug, his face changed and away he ran this time. Zhua Fan was floored. Forget that lass, Xiao Chui. Why is even Old Pang avoiding me like a plague? Zhua Fan frowned. Unable to get to the bottom of it, he was expert in reading people's intentions in negotiations and fights. But that was because he was convinced every man's actions were motivated by benefit, yet Old Pang's behavior had him stumped. I've done nothing to hurt him, and he shouldn't have a reason for being scared of me. Then what's the deal with him running away? Zhua Fan shook his head in puzzlement, but he wasn't in the mood to find out the reason. A man such as Demonic Emperor was a man of great action, not bothered by petty affairs. When he was about to leave, Lei Yuding appeared in his sight with a lunchbox, and Xiao Chui running behind her. Her cute body hid behind Lei Yuding, peeking her small head to gaze at Zhua Fan. What are you up to? Zhua Fan stood in place. Puzzled, Lei Yuding walked with unsure steps, unlike the usual decisive nature she carried herself with. When she looked at Zhua Fan, her cheeks were rosy. Steward Zhua, thank you for saving me. Please accept this small token of appreciation. Zhua Fan eyed the lunchbox with suspicion. As he eased the lid open, a wonderful smell swept him when the intricately made dishes prepared from the heart were in the open. What a wonderful smell! Zhua Fan asked, where did you buy them from? Did Wingay City have such a great restaurant? Humph, they weren't bought. Xiao Chui jumped out with a smile. Young Miss spent 10 hours each day making them and waited for Steward Zhua to come out of seclusion to try them out. Every day? Fan now unraveled the mystery of Xiao Chui running at the sight of him. It was to notify Lei Yuding, not knowing when he'd come out. Lei Yuding cooked for him every day. Her perseverance moved him, nodding. Fan spoke. I accept your gift. Lei Yuding cupped her blushing face and whispered, Steward just got well and needs to take care of his body. Hurry and eat before it gets cold. Right? Fan returned to his room with the lunchbox. Even though he was in the qi condensation stage, not eating for a month made him hungry. Lei Yuding, with Xiao Chui in tow, followed him in. Her eyes shined like the sun, soft yet warm enough to melt a glacier. When Fan was about to dig in, Luo Yunchang's charming figure entered the room with a knock. Captain Peng followed behind her, quirking an eyebrow. Fan saw her carrying a lunchbox too. Oh, I didn't know Steward already had someone bringing him breakfast. I was worried for nothing. When she saw the lunchbox in front Fan, Luo Yunchang's smile widened, but her eyes became sharp as if they were about to poke holes into everyone present. What got her in such a foul mood this morning? Fan flickered his brow in confusion. But when he picked up on Captain Peng's pitying glance, it got him baffled. Bam! Luo Yunchang slammed the box in front of Fan while squeezing a smile. Steward this is something I made for you to help in your recovery. I already have a share. I'm not a glutton to eat so much. Fan shrugged, planning on pushing aside Luo Yunchang's box, but then he sensed killing intent. He caught Luo Yunchang's eyes glaring at him. I'll try both of them. Fan flinched for the first time in his life. He didn't understand what the fuss was about, but knew that if he hadn't said that, there would have been a real danger to his life. Revealing Luo Yunchang's dishes, he found them scorched black, cutting most of his appetite. I think I'll eat this one. Fan went for Lei Yuding's box as she showed a bright smile, but even before his hand reached it, Luo Yunchang bumped her box closer to him with a glare. Didn't you say you'll eat them both? Fan's brow flickered, hesitation setting in as he took another long look at Luo Yunchang's burnt dishes, but he could hardly refuse her sincere eyes and nodded. All right, I'll eat them. Luo Yunchang broke out into a wide smile, to which Lei Yuding was showing disdain. Mine first. Luo Yunchang urged. No, mine. Lei Yuding said in haste. The two women's eyes met and sparks seemed to fly. Fan wondered. Weren't they close? Why are they fighting all of a sudden? He couldn't comprehend what could bring such a change in them. First come, first serve. Fan then took a bite out of Lei Yuding's dishes. She was staring at him with wide and expectant eyes. Fan gave a thumbs up. Delicious. Lei Yuding's smile bloomed like a flower while Xiao Chui pushed out her chin and shouted, My young miss started cooking since she was 10. No one in Wingay City can match her skill. You are fortunate today, Steward Xiao Chui's boast embarrassed Lei Yuding, but even that couldn't take away the radiant smile from her face. Luo Yunchang pouted. Fan, try mine? Fan took a bite, but spat it out as soon as it touched his tongue. Even poison is better. His words were sharp as he took Lei Yuding's box. I still choose this one. Lei Yuding was smiling, while Luo Yunchang's eyes started tearing. Wow, such a great smell. At this time, Luo Yunhai shouted in surprise as he jumped into Fan's room. Bro you're out. And you are having such a feast? Why didn't you invite me? Go and eat your sister's cooking. Fan dissed him. Luo Yunhai complained. Her skill isn't worth a dime. She doesn't know anything besides opening the kitchen door. Unable to stay there any longer, Luo Yunchang ran out with her lunchbox. But people could see the droplets she left behind on the floor. Was I wrong? Luo Yunhai was confused. Not at all. Fan gorged on Lei Yuding's cooking as he said, but some people have low confidence. After finishing his meal, Fan informed the others before leaving. Stay here as Hell Valley's people might still lurk around. I'm going to pay Veiled Dragon Pavilion a visit. Luo Yunhai and Captain Peng nodded, then turned to Lei Yuding. Seeing her all flushed, Xiao Chui was even more excited. How great! Young miss, Steward was interested in you. Lei Yuding only smiled at the same time. In the Imperial City, in a magnificent office, two people sat side by side. One man was in his 40s, dressed in a white silken robe. He had a small hanging mustache that shook with his smile. The other man was in his 50s, with a somber complexion and wearing a dark cloak. His pair of large eyes were filled with grievance. The two acted like strangers, not meeting each other's eyes. Cough, cough, cough. With a cough, a shaky body appeared before the two. It was an old man dressed in a golden robe embroidered with 9 dragons, Your Majesty. The men rose up and bowed. The elder waved for them to sit. Veiled Dragon Pavilion and Hell Valley both are from the 7 noble houses, the pillars of the empire. What matter has made you request an audience with me? This elder was the Emperor of Tianyu Empire. Your Majesty, Veiled Dragon Pavilion killed 2 of our Hell Valley's elders last month, breaking the 7 houses agreement. Your Majesty, please punish the Veiled Dragon Pavilion. The black-robed man complained, sneering. The middle-aged man spoke. You Wanshan, you have some nerve complaining first. Your Hell Valley's elder infringed upon my Veiled Dragon Pavilion's domain. How are you going to explain it? Who is it that broke the 7 houses agreement first? One of my valley's disciple, Yu Quan, was killed in Windgaze City. Can't I send an elder to bring the matter to light? Yuan Shan squinted. Long Yifi, you are just making an excuse to exact revenge for what happened 2 decades ago. Ha ha ha, and? 20 years ago, you trapped Elder Geo in Drifting Leaves City and ruined his mystic eye. You accused him of entering your domain and breaching the 7 houses agreement. I didn't object. This time, however, it is your elder who entered mine. And not just 1, but 4. Is this what you call investigation? Enough. The Emperor's cold shout came as his eyes flashed in anger. Both sides are in violation. This is my judgment. Veiled Dragon Pavilion shall withdraw from Windgaze City. It is no longer part of your domain. Hell Valley and Veiled Dragon Pavilion's people are never to set foot in this city ever again. Your Majesty. The two cupped their fists, but the Emperor flicked his sleeve. This matter is settled. Withdraw. I no longer want to hear anything about the 7 houses, nor about internal disputes. Understood. None of them was willing to accept this conclusion, but retreated nonetheless when they were gone. The Emperor's eyes flashed. For Hell Valley's people to enter Windgaze City, they must be privy to the 1,000-year-old secret. The Imperial City has always been a place of conflict, filled with the eyes and ears of every faction. This should be known to your Majesty. An aged voice replied from behind. The Emperor chuckled. It seems the plan has begun. Pearls will always shine. Chapter 43, A Stubborn Fatty. Chapter 43, A Stubborn Fatty. Since the Veiled Dragon Pavilion's Grand Gate was but a few hundred steps away, Zhuo Fan chose to walk, however. He stopped before passing through it. In front of the gate was a yellow palanquin with 4 peak chi condensation cultivators as carriers and 16 bone tempering cultivators. Surrounding it, a fat figure in yellow stood in front of the palanquin. You could barely make out his pin-sized eyes from his bulging cheeks. At first glance, one would take him as having a bun in place of his head. Zhuo Fan shook his head. He'd seen his fair share of people, but this was his first encountering such a fatso. How can one get so fat? Zhuo Fan resumed his gait, glancing at the fatty from time to time. His appearance was far from attractive, but his 7th chi condensation cultivation and the large number of guards was nothing to scoff. If the fatty was from Veiled Dragon Pavilion, he'd have gone in by now. Wait. Zhuo Fan's entry was stopped by a sudden shout. Turning around, he caught the sight of Fatty's feet sinking into the ground with each step towards him as Zhuo Fan's cheek started twitching. Do you need something? Hee. Are you from Veiled Dragon Pavilion? The fatty smiled. It would have been better if he hadn't, as his eyes were now gone for good. Zhuo Fan was shocked by such a baffling appearance for a moment. I'm just a guest. That means you can also enter. The fatty showed a warm smile. Can I ask brother's help with a small matter? Please send word to young Miss Long Kue. She hasn't come out for a whole day, and I had to sleep outside. This weird fatty is pursuing Long Kue. Zhuo Fan wanted to laugh, but he couldn't, not when there were so many people around. To think that haughty Long Kue knows this fellow. Setting aside his status, his weight alone would make her awkward if someone caught them together. All right, I will tell her right away. Zhuo Fan struggled not to laugh as the fatty cupped his hands in gratitude. I'll leave it to brother. Zhuo Fan hastened his pace in fear of laughing if he spent one more moment with this guy. It wasn't worth it offending a great faction for such a reason. He soon arrived at the meeting room and met Long Kue. Miss Kue, long time no see. How have you been? Great, until you showed up. Long Kue snorted. Fan didn't mind it. Where's Brogio? I want to speak with him. Out. Long Kui rolled her eyes. Fan read her face and found that she didn't lie. Since he didn't see Long Jiao either, it meant that he must be with Long Jiu on business. This would put a delay on the things he wanted to know. But he still had that fatty's message to deliver. To get that guy's gratitude and support, all I have to do is make this smug girl see him. What's the harm in passing the time while embarrassing this missy while I'm at it? Fan showed a wide grin. What's with you? Long Kui frowned. Oh, nothing. There's a rich, handsome guy outside who wants to talk to you. Hurry up and see him before he's gone. Hey, Miss Long, who's he? Fan elbowed her with raised eyebrows. Long Kui knew Fan was making fun of her and got angry. Ignoring him, she walked to the gates with Fan laughing behind her. Damn fatty, haven't I rejected your marriage proposal already? What are you still doing here? The fatty's smile fell. Sister Long Kui, that happened when I was 10. Now I'm 20. Don't you feel anything after I proposed 1,000 times these past 10 years? Of course I have. Annoyance. Fan butted in at this point, patting the fatty's shoulder as he looked at Long Kui. Miss Long Kui, such tender and strong love are rare these days. My dear friend is so smitten by you that he even slept outside waiting for you. The last words almost made Fan burst in laughter. The fatty was so touched that the thick sarcasm flew right past him. Long Kui saw them working in unison, one explaining while the other agreeing, and felt her anger peaking. But for some reason, she changed to a charming smile. Even Fan blanked out from seeing her smile like this for the first time. And there was no need to mention the drooling fatty. Long Kui felt sick inside but still maintained her composure. Brother Tsong, you've always treated me so well ever since we were little. But my heart belongs to another. What? Who's the punk? The fatty's face changed and his eyes spat fire. Fan thought, oh, she isn't planning on dragging me into this, is she? Yet Long Kui turned to him with an enigmatic smile. Oh, hell. Fan didn't know which faction the fatty belonged to, but one thing was clear, he wasn't to be provoked. Fan already had Hell Valley as his enemy, and messing with another faction just as strong, if not stronger, then even Demonic Emperor would have a hard time turning disaster into an opportunity. I was wondering why you were able to enter Veiled Dragon Pavilion like you own the place. It was because you and Long Kui are. The fatty grabbed Fan's collar and glared. Fan denied. Brother, it's all just a misunderstanding. However, the fatty's eyes were red from anger and blinded to reason. There were two things any man would go berserk from: having his father killed and wife stolen. But the latter caused way more outrage than the former, feeling as if he was wearing such a hat with no rhyme or reason turned this misunderstanding into a conflict. Fan sighed. Now I have to ask Long Jiu to explain in order to avoid offending another power. He was pondering on how to do it when he was floored by Fatty's next words. Sister Kui, what do you not like about me? Does this punk have something that I don't? Fan almost spat blood, watching the fatty in a daze. Brother, now I know why you proposed 1,000 times. Cocky people, he has seen aplenty, but this was Fan's first time meeting one as oblivious about himself as this guy watching the fatty, who could burrow the earth just by standing. Fan wanted to shout, brother, it's more like you pack something way extra than me. Even Long Kui was silently rolling her eyes. Brother Tsong, there must be some other reason for you to be here. You do not have the luxury of leaving the Imperial capital as you wish. Take care of your matters and stop wasting time. That is out of the question. You are my future wife. I even applied for this task just to see you. Yet, then the fatty glared at Fan. Let's duel. He pointed at Fan's nose as he raged. We will duel today to settle Sister Kui's groom. Fan took a closer look at the fatty, secretly admiring him. This kid is the first who didn't shout out his glorious clan's name before me. Just from this, Fan liked him. Hearing the fatty request a duel, one of his guards stepped forward. Young master, your body is too precious to participate in duels. It's best if you let me handle him. Quiet. The fatty interrupted the guard. It is I who want to marry Sister Kui. My honor and dignity as a man are on the line. If you fight, I'll be mocked forever and Sister Kui will despise me even more. I will never ever approve of you. Long Kui rolled her eyes. Fan agreed with a grin. Well said. I accept. However, All your guards are stronger than me, and I can't take even a single hit from them if they interfere. If I say we will duel, then it will be one-on-one. My word is gold. You don't believe me? The fatty was even angrier now. Zhuofan shook his head. I do believe you, but if I defeat you, can they hold themselves from not jumping in? At that point, even if you order them not to, it won't do much good. It was unknown if the fatty was pondering or fuming since his eyes disappeared when he squinted. But then he barked at the guards. All of you stay put. If anyone has the nerve to move, I'll kill him. Then he turned to Zhuofan. Pick a location where we won't be disturbed. Zhuofan smiled while Long Kuei frowned and blocked him. You truly intend to fight? If he gets hurt, even Veil Dragon Pavilion can't help you. He just nodded. This fatty isn't bad. Long Kuei was stunned when the fatty saw them stick together. His heart was aflame from rage. Panting with each word, he declared, Punk, you'll see. I will mop the floor with you. Zhuofan smiled, not minding it in the least. Chapter 44, Assassin. Chapter 44, Assassin. Zhuofan took the fatty to a remote place in the woods. Since Long Kuei was afraid of mishaps, she also went along. But Zhuofan already had Blood Infant keep an eye out. At least the fatty's order worked like a charm, and the guards stayed behind. Zhuofan clapped. Fatty, I praise you for not using the guards. Humph. I am always true to my word. This is related to me and Sister Kuei's happy marriage. I will have to beat you, pesky puck. So thorough you can't contest my victory. Or who knows what excuse you'll use later to pester Sister Kuei. The fatty jutted out his chin smiling. Zhuofan showed his vicious side. Aren't you worried I laid an ambush? The fatty frowned. His pin-sized eyes scoured his surroundings as he roared, Humph, I am willing to venture alone against any adversity, but if you think Sister Kuei will look kindly to such a despicable punk, think again. No matter what you have in store, I will never lose. Ha ha, enough with the heroism. Kid, I like you. It's time we get this duel started. Zhuofan smiled, yet even before he finished, a punch came his way. Zhuofan rushed to dodge, but he was too late to react. His body flew and his right cheek was now red and swollen. Hey fatso, I thought you were an honorable man. Zhuofan snapped at the nonchalant fatty who replied, Didn't you just give start to the duel? All is fair in love and war. Zhuofan took a long look at him and secretly nodded. This kid is more cunning than he lets on, yet he conducts himself with honor. He is as honest as old Pang, but that is where the similarities end. Compared to the simple old Pang, Zhuofan, like the shrewd fatty, more a demonic cultivator, would use any means to reach his goal. This fatty, who bent the limits of morality, was more to Zhuofan's liking. Ha ha ha, you're right. Zhuofan cackled and pointed at Long Kuei. Fatty, look, Long Kuei is undressing. The fatty could spot a lie when he heard one, but he still bought it this time and turned towards Long Kuei's direction. Bam. Zhuofan used this chance to kick the fatty into the air. Bastard. Long Kuei fumed at the sideline with a red face, yet the culprit didn't mind it in the least when her glare focused on him. Wretched punk, you dared sully Sister Kuei's honor. I will show you. The fatty wobbled as he got to his feet, but his eyes burned hotter than ever. Zhuofan dissed him. I was just messing around, yet you looked anyway. Weren't you also thinking something shameful about our young Miss Long? The fatty gasped. Never had he heard this kind of counter before. Zhuofan might have disrespected Long Kuei, but didn't he himself sully his goddess by imagining something inappropriate? If so, did he have the right to blame Zhuofan? Fatty's resentment was gone just like that, and he even felt ashamed. But once he imagined Long Kuei changing clothes, his face went beet red. His small eyes were perfect in hiding his secret stare over Long Kuei's enticing figure, but she found him out nonetheless and stared him down with killing intent when a shiver crawled up his spine. The fatty focused on the fight. Punk, I will let this matter slide. Time to get serious. The fatty's body gave out a golden shine and even the ground started cracking around him. High mortal ranked martial art, mountain shaking punch. The fatty darted towards Zhuofan like a raging bull, cracking each and every stone he set his foot on. Punk, better dodge. But if you do, admit your loss. Grinning, Zhuofan extended a red palm. Not intimidated in the least, the fatty raved. Damn punk, this will be your funeral. I am at the 7th layer of chi condensation and using a high-ranked martial art. This is not a move which a 5th layer chi condensation punk can withstand. If you treasure your life, dodge. But Zhuofan didn't budge. The fatty didn't wish for the worst outcome and wanted to hold back some of his power, but it was too late now. His flabby body was already upon Zhuofan. Boom. Something strange happened. The weak-looking Zhuofan was still standing as a breeze ruffled his hair. The fatty, however, had his golden light scattered thanks to the red glow and was sent flying. He hit the ground in a daze, and even as he got up, he still couldn't shake his astonishment. How can this be? I am clearly stronger, so why was I the one who got pushed back? He needed a long time to recover from the shock. Long Kuei scoffed. She didn't like Zhuofan one bit, but that didn't stop her from admiring his strength and ability. After all, he was the first on the continent to have killed 2 profound heaven expert while being a chi condensation cultivator. Arriving next to Fatty, Zhuofan offered his hand with a smile. Fatty, I know you went easy on me. The fatty sighed. A loss is a loss. Using all my power against someone weaker is the same as losing. I am an upright man. This is your win. Zhuofan turned serious. You might take it as being upright, but I see it as kindness. The fatty looked closer at Zhuofan. He was amazed this man found out his intention in that split second. I see now why Sister Kuei likes you. The fatty praised him and took Zhuofan's hand. He went along Kuei and sighed. Sister Kuei, you found a great man. This punk will turn into a monster one day. The fatty felt dejected, but a sudden sound broke the silence. Zhuofan squinted his eyes and pushed the fatty to the ground. A green light passed above them the next second, cutting all the trees in its path. The fatty looked up at Zhuofan with gratitude. Brother, thank you for saving me. I never thought that my love rival will become my savior. It's too early for thanks. Here they come. Zhuofan frowned as he helped the fatty up. Long Kuei also ran next to them. A dozen men appeared around the 3 of them the next moment, each giving off the energy of a bone-tempering expert. What now? Long Kuei's expression was grave as she looked at Zhuofan. With the Veiled Dragon Pavilion being even farther than the fatty's guards, the only one she could turn for help was the guy she disliked the most. But he was also the one most likely to pull off a miracle. The fatty strode out from between the 2 with confidence. It's me you're after. Let them go. Hi. As a member of the Imperial family, you sure have the air of a king. But too bad we can't leave any witnesses. A man stood out from the group. He was their leader. The fatty was filled with hatred suddenly. Zhuofan kicked the fatty with a snicker. This fatty is under my care. If you want to kill him, you'll have to go through me first. The dozen men laughed. A mere chi condensation insect wants to act tough? Since they'll all die anyway, let's start with him. It's best we kill the fatty first and complete the mission. It was hard enough finding this opportunity after waiting for so long. We can't let it go to waste. As they were rambling on and on, the fatty whispered to Zhuofan, Brother, they're after me. I will run towards east while you take Sister Kuei back to Veiled Dragon Pavilion. Zhuofan shook his head. With your speed, you won't even last 1 second. What other choice do we have? Asked the fatty. Flustered Zhuofan hardened his tone and said, Slaughter them all. He took a step and reached their leader as Savage Moon flashed in his hand. Demonic treasure? The leader was shocked and wanted to dodge, but a red light entered his body and froze his movements. Whoosh. With a silver flash, a head trailed the sky followed by a fountain of blood. Only Zhuofan stood in the pool of blood with cruel eyes for the first time in Fatty's life. His eyes bulged out from his chubby face, becoming larger than ever. Chapter 45, Slaughter. Chapter 45, Slaughter. The silence was deafening. Everyone watched slack-jawed at the unfolding event. No one there could have imagined a chi condensation kid blindsiding them, who were bone-tempering experts, and even killing one in a single hit. All the mockery and disdain they had for Zhuofan was now replaced with extreme caution. Fatty was still out of it, staring at Zhuofan like his brain was on the fritz. It finally dawned upon him that it wasn't him who held back the most in their duel, but Zhuofan. Kill the punk first. With a sudden shout, the men charged at Zhuofan together. They were now of one mind, no longer of a different opinion. They had to kill this dreadful and sinister punk first. If they were to leave him for later, they were sure they'd have to pay a steep price. Even if they outnumbered him, they had long forgotten their main objective and were now pointing their weapons at the punk who was holding Savage Moon and standing in a pool of blood, smiling wryly. Zhuofan snickered. I wouldn't have it any other way. The next moment, he jumped at the first enemy. The man was startled and rushed to retreat. Even if Zhuofan was just in the chi condensation stage and unable to hurt him, the third-grade demonic treasure would cut through him like butter. Their leader got such a miserable death for underestimating Zhuofan, and he wasn't willing to make the same mistake. With eyes fixed on Savage Moon's trail, the killer grinned. He knew how to deal with Zhuofan. Since his speed was superior to Zhuofan, all he needed to do was pay attention to Savage Moon, and killing this kid would be a breeze. However, just as he was about to jump into action, Savage Moon flashed a silver glow. The light wrapped around Zhuofan and then streaked by the killer's body. The killer had no idea what happened and was looking up as his upper half slid to the ground while his lower half stood there unmoving. While he fell, he could still see Zhuofan's grim face, especially the eyes, cold and unfeeling. Everyone sucked in a cold breath as they watched Zhuofan with dread. If one were to say that killing their leader was from a sneak attack, this time around it was a fair fight, and yet Zhuofan still killed a bone-tempering expert in an instant when the silver light flashed again. He was so fast that none of the killers had time to react before Zhuofan felled another. Such horrifying speed, coupled with the sharp edge of the Savage Moon, soaked the backs of the killers in a cold sweat. As you dared to come look for trouble in my domain. Zhuofan squinted at each man around him and trailed a finger across his neck as his eyes turned red. Your lives are forfeited. At that moment, all of them paled and stepped back. The fear they felt from his eyes mounted the dread they already had. Their roles began to blur as it became unclear who was the victim and who was the killer. The hunters and prey's role were now switched. The fatty watched Zhuofan's domineering gaze while being shell-shocked. Then, he was swept by a sudden familiar feeling, the imposing and grand feeling he felt only from his father, but what he felt from Zhuofan was far more assertive. As if all who dared resist this man would find themselves dead beyond a shred of a doubt, the pressure Zhuofan's power released was something that even made him shiver. Seeing that they couldn't contend with Zhuofan individually, a killer shouted, "Don't be afraid, let's attack together. He's just a chi condensation punk, relying on a third-grade demonic treasure. If we surround him, he's done for." The others nodded as fear eased from their faces. Now that they had a plan, they found hope. With a cry, the killers jumped at Zhuofan, closing the net on him, sneering. Zhuofan rushed forward without fear as he held Savage Moon. His target swallowed dryly but didn't retreat since he had men on each side releasing punch at Zhuofan. If Zhuofan pressed on, the killer would die, but so would Zhuofan under the joint attack of two bone-tempering experts. But if he retreated instead, it would only work to tighten the net, and his death would be just a matter of time. Zhuofan didn't plan on dying in this fight, or he would have fled a long time ago with the help of Savage Moon's speed boost. Whoosh! With a flash of silver, Zhuofan vanished from their sights, and the punches hit nothing but air. Zhuofan then landed right in front of the killer, who was standing behind the other two. Having not seen this coming, the killer was frightened, but soon became elated seeing that Zhuofan was not facing him. He didn't waste this chance and punched towards Zhuofan's defenseless back. "Your head is mine, kid." But a silver light flashed by and the man froze in the moment of impending doom. Zhuofan swept Savage Moon around him and jumped from their tight circle. As for the man behind Zhuofan, he watched wide-eyed as his body hit the ground in two pieces, blood and guts spilling everywhere. Another one. Even under their joint efforts, Zhuofan came out unscathed and robbed them of another comrade. Fear in their eyes mounted higher and higher. They had some hope before, wishing to kill him with numbers. But that hope was now lost. What kind of freak is he? When did the 7 noble houses have such a person? A killer cursed as he felt his knees trembling, secretly sneering. Zhuofan squinted his eyes and bathed the world with the killing intent they contained. These killers were routed. They lost their nerve and were no longer a threat. Now was the perfect time to end them. Zhuofan rushed forth with a savage grin. Silver light flickered as Zhuofan brandished Savage Moon and sent limbs flying with each passing. The killers cried during their futile attempts to evade. Having lost any and all will to resist, Zhuofan was like a wolf among sheep, taking his fill of slaughter and carnage. For the occasional spirited and still brave souls among them, blood infant would enter their body and seal their movements, thus priming them for Zhuofan. only to leave them mangled if it was any other day. With Zhua Fan's strength and Blood Infant's help, he could only fight with a single bone-tempering expert. If another joined, he'd have a hard time reacting to their attacks, let alone killing a dozen, but luck had it he got Savage Moon off Elder Yun, whom he killed a month ago. This gave him newfound confidence. Savage Moon was just as deadly as Blood Infant was on bone-tempering experts, perhaps even more, especially when taking its ability to increase one's speed into consideration. And all of this was added to Zhua Fan, who already had the skills to skip stages. Now that he thought about it, he really ought to thank Hell Valley for throwing such a nice toy in his lap. Hearing the bone-tempering expert's miserable wails, watching heads and entrails flying about, the fatty remained lifeless from shock. He stood there witnessing the gruesome dance Zhua Fan was performing with Savage Moon. For these killers to cry and beg for their lives was something unheard of. He could hardly believe that the man he recognized as a love rival, the man he challenged, was strong to this degree. Recalling their duel, it seemed more like a joke now. The bone-tempering experts were butchered like animals in front of the fatty. A 7th-layered chi condensation cultivator, dared to issue a challenge, and still was lenient with him while preaching fairness. Sigh, Yuan Song. Your lenient act and fairness preaching was meaningless. The fatty shook his head, feeling mournful. He had seen many peers among the 7 houses who were geniuses, and even if he wasn't stronger than them, he believed their strength wasn't far from his. But Zhua Fan showed him today what the saying, a man above man, and a sky above a sky, meant. Those geniuses were nothing but trash by comparison. Furthermore, the gap was so huge at such a young age. Long Kuei covered her mouth, experiencing the greatest shock she ever felt. This was the first time she saw Zhua Fan fighting. She had heard of him killing 2 profound heaven experts, but doubt still existed. This notion was far too outrageous for anyone to believe. But watching him fight today left this young miss stunned. The cruelty, the overbearing eyes, it was as if a demon had descended, one which was capable of scaring and overpowering even bone-tempering experts. Whoosh. When Zhua Fan finally stopped, Savage Moon in his hand was dripping blood. The dry earth around him had become a wide pool of blood. A killer shivered as he watched the Savage Moon's fall with dread. His legs were severed, but the pain wasn't registered as begging was all that was left on his mind. Not sparing him a glance, Zhua Fan asked coldly, "Who sent you?" Zhua Fan's eyes didn't reflect an ounce of pity towards any living creature in this world, only coldness. The killer looked around to see his dead brothers, and fear swept his heart. He didn't know where to begin describing the savagery and cruelty of this youth before him. This youth was, in all sense of the word, a demon. The killer's heart was in shambles. But a sudden whistling sound was heard, and the killer's eyes lost its light, killing with intent, a radiant stage expert. Zhua Fan drew a cold breath. His bottomless and cold eyes now showed a ripple of panic. Chapter 46, Alliance. Chapter 46, Alliance. The whistling sound was heard clearly by everyone, but none could afford to slack their guard. On the contrary, each felt their heart in their throat. A radiant stage expert was able to kill with divine intent alone. This was an enemy Zhua Fan wouldn't be able to defeat even with Blood Infant and Savage Moon. An icy shiver traveled down his spine as Zhua Fan turned more and more serious. Whoosh. The whistle stopped suddenly, and a pair of steps echoed. Zhua Fan and the other 2 forgot to breathe. Their eyes were fixed towards the sound's location, but when the person came out into the open, the fatty was stunned for a second before shouting, "Teacher, how come you're here?" Long Kuei cried with joy, "Senior Fong, what brought you here?" Zhua Fan saw the 2 recognizing the new entrant, and began sizing him up. The man had a goatee and looked like he was in his 60s. He was dressed in a blue robe and had a sword strapped to his back. All this time he was smiling as the green jade flute revolved in his hand. The jade flute shocked Zhua Fan. He remembered something and asked, "Are you one of the 5 divine dragons, the guardians of the Imperial family, jade flute divine sword, Fang Qiubai?" Zhua Fan heard Long Zhou mention that even if the Imperial family could no longer control the 7 houses, they could still persevere, all thanks to the 5 divine dragons. Each was a peak radiant stage expert whom none of the 7 houses would dare mess with. Among them, there was a man known as the First Divine Sword, and he was Fang Qiubai, Jade Flute Divine Sword, he boasted himself as having united the sword and the flute as one, that his sword followed the sound and turned it into sword intent. One time, he single-handedly defeated 5 Radiant stage experts with a sword strike, forcing the 7 houses to forget about testing him while also spreading his name to the 4 corners of the world. The man raised an eyebrow and watched Zhuo Fan with a profound look before nodding with laughter. Long Ju appeared before everyone. Wasn't I right? This kid has sharp eyes. I only mentioned you once, and he already recognized you. Uncle Jiu. Long Kuei was overjoyed as she ran to him. When did you and Senior Feng arrive? Why didn't you come out sooner? Ha ha ha. We've been here since Brother Zhua and the 3rd Prince's duel. Long Jiu turned to Zhuo Fan. Brother Zhua, you're quite something to keep a straight face against a dozen bone-tempering experts. When I was your age, I certainly lacked the courage you showed today. I truly admire you. Long Kuei pouted while casting a side glance towards Zhuo Fan. Seeing Zhuo Fan in action had her convinced, but admitting it was a whole nother matter. Master, with you 2 seniors here, why didn't you act? You almost worried your student to death. Fatty clapped his fat chest. It mattered little what happened to me, but what if Sister Kuei got hurt? Ha ha ha, and miss a good show? Feng Qiubai laughed, eyeing the calm and collected Zhuo Fan. Moreover, I've never seen such a marvelous display before. Senior, you're too kind. Zhuo Fan cupped his hands, but his face was stone cold. I'm only curious, why did Senior kill the last one? Is it? Feng Qiubai squinted and his smile turned fake as he spoke in a frosty tone. Youngster, you are exceptionally sharp, but your strength might turn this advantage into a flaw. Raising an eyebrow, Zhuo Fan laughed and cupped his hands. Junior thanks for Senior's lesson. Junior has already forgotten this encounter. Zhuo Fan picked up on Feng Qiubai's warning. He did not wield enough power to poke his nose in their conflict. The man had silenced the killer to protect him. Feng Qiubai took one more long look at him and his admiration grew. You're not only smart but also know when to retreat. How rare. What a surprise, finding someone like you in the mortal world yet outside the 7 houses. If you weren't a demonic cultivator, something I am unsuited with, I would have wanted to teach you for 2 years and make your future limitless. Long Kuei and Fatty were shocked. Outsiders may not know who Feng Qiubai was, but the 7 houses were crystal clear on his character. Who among the heads of the 7 houses didn't want to have their child under his tutelage? But this old man was stubborn as a mule, not giving them any attention. Even if the emperor were to request him on behalf of his sons, he'd act no differently. He'd been teaching the Fatty for 3 years because Feng Qiubai appreciated his strong will, yet the Fatty barely learned a few moves. But it wasn't enough to accept him as a disciple. Yet the first time he laid eyes on Zhuo Fan, Feng Qiubai took the initiative to invite him. If the two had walked the same cultivation path, Zhuo Fan would have been Divine Sword's first disciple wherever he'd go. If any 7 houses disciples saw him, they'd have to bow down to him. Long Ju saw the 2 kids' shock and surmised their thoughts with a shake of his head. These kids are yet to reach our level, so they don't know the meaning of rare find. With Zhuo Fan's talent, any expert who saw him would want to take him as a disciple. Even if one was unrivaled in the world, to pass on his mantle he needed to find the best disciple suited for his legacy. The greater the strength of the expert, the higher the expectation. But Zhuo Fan shook his head at this and even sneered. Forget about Feng Qiubai not accepting him because of cultivation path difference. Even if he could be accepted, he'd still refuse. As a demonic emperor, the only one worthy of him calling master was an emperor stage expert. Feng Qiubai was reluctant to let Zhuo Fan pass by him, but, in the end, he took Fatty and left. Long Jiu, 3rd Prince, still has a task to complete, so I'm taking him with me. Feng Qiubai and Fatty disappeared the moment he finished. Wait, Fatty still wanted to say something to Long Kuei and Zhuo Fan, but it was too late. 1 second his anxious face was there, and the next it was gone so fast. Zhuo Fan was shocked, then he hardened his resolve. He had to reach Radiant Stage as soon as possible to guarantee his safety in his travels across the continent. Brother Zhuo? Long Jia walked to Zhuo Fan with a solemn face. Come with me to Veiled Dragon Pavilion. There's something I have for you. Smiling wryly, Zhuo Fan nodded. He had anticipated this. 15 minutes later, Zhuo Fan and Long Jiu were in Veiled Dragon Pavilion's meeting room, and Long Jiu pushed an unwilling Long Kuei to guard the door outside. Long Jiu took out a sheepskin branded with 4 dragon marks. The first words that Shuofan recognized were alliance agreement skimming through it. A pleasing smile bloomed on his face. This was what he aimed for from the start. An alliance between Veiled Dragon Pavilion and the Luo clan. Veiled Dragon Pavilion would not only become a support for the Luo clan, but would also provide resources without any conditions attached. If the agreement came into effect, he'd be worry-free from any outside attacks and would have the time to develop the Luo clan into a great power. Long Jiu was a bit astounded. Why do I feel like you knew this was coming? Shuofan smiled. It had nothing to do with predicting, but planning. Once he settled on having Veiled Dragon Pavilion as an ally, he used the ancient array diagram to entice Long Jiu, then took advantage of Veiled Dragon Pavilion in sticking its neck out for him. But that wasn't an alliance. It was just the Luo clan seeking shelter. When faced with great danger, Veiled Dragon Pavilion would have kicked them out to avoid the worst outcome. He and Veiled Dragon Pavilion fought side by side and even killed 2 profound heaven elders. He risked defending the Hell Valley to show the potential of the Luo clan. His aim was an alliance agreement of equals. If he were alone, he would have avoided showing off by fighting 2 profound heaven experts and amassed fortune. Instead, if Veiled Dragon Pavilion's Pavilion Lord was a man of vision, he'd choose alliance. Because he would know that the alliance offered now was like fire in winter for the Luo clan. But if offered in the future, it would be more like decoration, one among many. As such, Shuofan made a daring gambit. Gambling if the Pavilion Lord was a man of ambition who did not bother with trifles, and willing to make an ally out of a fallen clan. Fortunately, he won. Of course, if he lost, then Shuofan would cross Veiled Dragon Pavilion from the list of future potential allies. Just because their leader lacked the bravery and ambition of one. Shuofan smiled as he rolled up the sheepskin. I will now take it to young Miss for signing. Wait. Long Jiu gripped his shoulder. Sign it here and now. Shuofan smiled. I'm not the clan head. Signing it as a steward will make it void. With a sly smirk, Long Jiu looked at Shuofan in the eye. Pavilion Lord said this agreement is not with the Luo clan, but with Shuofan. Frowning, Shuofan stared hard at Long Jiu. Wherever Shuofan is, that place is Veiled Dragon Pavilion's ally. Long Jiu spoke. This is Pavilion Lord's intent. Shuofan frowned, then smiled with a nod. Pavilion Lord sure is ambitious. Ha. In the dead of night, Shuofan returned to the small courtyard and looked for Captain Pang. Old Pang, where's Missy? I'm looking for her. Sighing, Old Pang muttered. I'll take you to her. Shuofan was taken aback but followed nonetheless. The two entered the kitchen and Shuofan looked at Captain Pang in puzzlement. When the latter pointed at Luo Yunchang, Shuofan saw the chaos inside the kitchen and Luo Yunchang, who had fallen asleep next to the stove. Her face even had traces of soot. Sigh. Young Miss kept asking the cook for guidance from morning till late into the night. Captain Pang sighed, blaming Shuofan a little. Steward Zhua, I know of your skill, and that young Miss and young Master do not enter your eyes. But you must know, young Miss worked hard day in day out for a whole month to cook for you, so that you could have them when you come out of seclusion. But her efforts were not appreciated. Instead, she received your harsh criticization. Any girl would have been devastated after such a response. Ignoring Captain Pang's rant, Shuofan walked next to the stove where the few dishes Luo Yunchang made late. Compared to those at noon, these dishes were almost burned. Shuofan took a bite and shook his head. She has no talent whatsoever. Sigh, even so, at least show some consideration for her work. Captain Pang rebuked as he walked next to the dishes and tried one. How hard can it be to swallow? He also took a bite and chewed it just once before spitting it right back out. You're right, Steward Zhua. Young Miss is inept at cooking. Sorry for blaming you. Captain Pang wiped his mouth and walked out with a red face, but when he turned back, he saw Shuofan taking one bite after another, and even savoring it. Steward Zhua, don't force yourself. Ignore what I said. Now that I've also tried young Miss cooking, it's indeed. Captain Pang's mouth clamped shut, and his face twisted. I'm just a bit hungry. Shuofan smiled as he ate everything. Chapter 47, Imperial Family's Invitation. Chapter 47, Imperial Family's Invitation. In the morning, a ray of sunshine entered the small courtyard's kitchen. Luo Yunchang's eyelids trembled as she opened her drowsy eyes. She looked around the kitchen and smiled dejectedly. Last night, she was so tired after cooking that she fell asleep in the kitchen itself. Even if anyone caught wind of this, no one would believe it. A chi condensation cultivator tiring herself out from cooking? But the truth was she was too fatigued that she would rather pick cultivation instead of cooking. Just as she was getting up, she froze. Someone had put a plain cover on her, and her back wasn't leaning on the hard stove, but on something soft. Instead, pursing her lips, she turned her head only to see a sleeping Zhuofan leaning on her. And what kept her back soft was his arm. Luo Yunchang was about to yelp, but she covered her mouth. It never crossed her mind that Zhuofan would spend the night with her here blushing. Luo Yunchang observed his face and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. Young Miss' red lips were inching ever closer to his face. Steward Zhua. Young Miss. A sudden rough shout came from Captain Pang. Zhuofan's eyelids trembled and were about to open. Luo Yunchang immediately laid her head back on his shoulder and faked sleeping without budging. Just that her red face betrayed her as if she'd done something she shouldn't. Zhuofan opened his eyes, took a deep breath, and frowned when he saw Captain Pang coming in. Old Pang, what's the rush? Brother Zhua, young miss. Captain Pang pointed at Luo Yunchang with shock. Zhuofan turned to see Luo Yunchang's red and shivering face. He touched her forehead. It's burning up. Did she catch a cold? Shaking his head, Zhuofan blamed himself last night. He wanted to take Luo Yunchang back to her room, but afraid of waking her up, he chose to watch over her in the kitchen. He didn't think sleep would cast its spell on him too. Old Pang, say what you came to say. Meanwhile, I'll take this missy back to her room. Zhuofan carried Luo Yunchang, but Old Pang was panicking. You can't, Brother Zhua. Someone wants to invite young miss for a chat. Someone we can't offend. What can't offend? She won't be going even if the Veiled Dragon Pavilion asked. Zhuofan snapped. Can't you see she has lost consciousness? She must be sick. Wait for a bit, and I'll go see the guest. Sigh, Brother Zhua, Steward Zhua. Young miss must go meet him in person. He bears the Imperial Golden Seal. Captain Pang shouted. Zhuofan stopped. Only the Imperial family's guards had this seal. Even the 7 houses leaders would have to respond at once, or they'd have committed a grave crime. The lightest punishment was death, while the harshest was dragging one's whole clan with him. Of course, with the 7 noble houses' power, the Imperial family would refrain from resorting to such methods. But that didn't apply to a fallen clan like them. Zhuofan squinted and thought it through. Old Pang, tell him young miss is unwell and that he should come back tomorrow. What? Captain Pang's heart jumped in fright. That person carries the Emperor's edict. If you do this, it is the same as saying you don't want to talk to him. But Zhuofan had it thought out. Thinking back to last night, he guessed the one calling him over was that fatty's guard. The fatty was a good man and wouldn't let emotions cloud his judgment, slaughtering innocents left and right. Do what I said, now. Zhuofan raised his voice. Wait. Luo Yunchang yelled, struggling out of Zhuofan's embrace, and spoke with a stern face. Captain Pang, tell him to wait a moment to make myself presentable. Understood. Captain Pang bowed and secretly rejoiced. Thank God. Young miss woke up, or who knew how much trouble Brother Zhua's arrangement would have stirred up. But this Steward Zhua sure is dauntless. If I were to follow his words, I'll die of fright. Captain Pang shook his head and left. Zhuofan watched Luo Yunchang skeptically. How did she regain consciousness all of a sudden? Luo Yunchang rolled her eyes. Why are you so reckless? Is the Imperial family someone you can offend? To avoid him noticing anything, Luo Yunchang rushed away. Zhuofan was left to walk alone to the living room, with doubt in his heart. He met with the man carrying the seal, a peak chi condensation cultivator. He was one of the porters to Fatty's palanquin. Are you Steward Zhua? My master is inviting you and young Miss Luo for a talk. The envoy cupped his hands, but the prideful attitude never left him, and either on purpose or otherwise, the Imperial Golden Seal flashed on his waist. Perhaps he was afraid they'd mistake him for someone other than the Imperial family's guard. Zhuofan snorted. You're still soft thinking you can fake your arrogance around me. When I was faking it, you were still but an egg in your mother's belly. Zhuofan didn't even look at him as he slumped in a chair, one leg over the other. The envoy's eyes swelled with rage. Is the fatty's injury healed? Zhuofan asked in passing. Fatty? The man was stunned. Then it hit him that Zhuofan was calling his master fatty. But the number of people in this world who dared to call him that was less than 10 than he and master are. His heart started beating a mile a minute, and the arrogance was gone from his eyes. My master did not mention any injury when he returned last night. Is that so? Zhuofan raised an eyebrow, then laughed. He must be thinking of his image. I punched him 30-odd times yesterday and kicked him a dozen times more. There's no way he's fine. Don't you think so too? That fatty must be faking it so you guys won't laugh at him. Ha ha, Zhuofan quirked his eyebrows at the man. The envoy's lips twitched, unable to respond. But he was embarrassed nonetheless, right? Was that old goat Feng Qiubai still angry after he arrived? Zhuofan looked at him carefully this time, but the envoy just shook his head. Feng Qiubai returned with his master yesterday, and only then did they find out about Feng Qiubai's arrival. Since Zhuofan knew this before them, it spoke how close he was with his master at this point. The envoy stashed the seal in his pants. It worked well in scaring some, but it was best to not make a fool of himself in front of such a young master like Zhuofan. Great? Seeing the envoy shaking his head, Zhuofan rejoiced. Perhaps you don't know, but that old goat wanted to take me as a disciple. If not for my staunch heart and me choosing death over kneeling, the old goat would have taken me away by now. I still thought he was angry and was going to come nag me again. Now that I know he isn't, I can rest easy. That old goat understands my predicament. What? Feng Qiubai wanted to take you as a disciple? The man shouted as his legs went soft and collapsed. Heavens! Who the hell is this young master? He is a friend that beat up master and also someone wanted as a disciple by Jade Flute Divine Sword Feng Qiubai, who the emperor shows respect to? Zhuofan secretly sneered. What's wrong? Why fall over? Let me help you. Zhuofan said so, but showed no intention of moving. The envoy was sharp enough to get back on his feet while waving his hand. No need, Steward Zhua. I don't dare ask you of such a favor. I am not worthy. Humph, a servant's instinct. Zhuofan disdained. You call helping you get up a favor? Might you be the emperor's envoy? Luo Yunchang, dressed to impress, walked before him and bowed. The envoy rushed to kowtow. You are making it hard on me. Please don't be so courteous. If master heard I was disrespectful to his friends, he will punish me. Luo Yunchang was at a loss and turned to Zhuofan, who just shrugged, but Captain Pang, who was behind her, was stunned silly at the sight of the envoy's courteous attitude. Where's your previous haughty attitude? Spouting something like if young miss didn't come to see you in 15 minutes, you'd be executing all of us. Why this sudden change of tones? But even this change was too outrageous and polite. Captain Pang eyed Zhuofan, who only sported a puzzling smile. Old Pang figured Steward Zhua had something to do with it and gave him a thumbs up. Only Steward Zhua can make an Imperial family's guard kowtow to our young miss. Zhuofan dismissed the envoy's courtesy. Why is that fatty calling me? I do not know. I was only ordered to invite Windgay City's Kai clan, Lei clan, and Luo clan. The envoy spoke with extreme politeness. Zhuofan squinted. It seems that the Hell Valley targeting the three clans must have something to do with the Imperial family. Chapter 48, 1000-Year-Old Secret Edict. Chapter 48, 1000-Year-Old Secret Edict. In a peaceful location within the forest, a kilometer from Windgay City, stood a remote courtyard. The 4 guards posted at the door were bone-tempering experts. Zhuofan and Luo Yunchang came along with Luo Yunhai and Captain Pang with the envoy as their guide. Steward Zhua. Young Miss Luo, please enter. The man was very polite. He opened the door, stood to the side and bowed for them to pass. The other guards frowned with doubt and a flicker of scorn in their eyes. They were Imperial family's guards, always welcomed with bows and courtesy everywhere, but this guy went to invite some no-name clan heads and even bowed down before them. He was seen as a disgrace by his fellow guards. The man picked up on scorn, but he just smirked. How can idiots know the importance these people hold? Steward Zhua is master's friend, who even Senior Feng Qiubai has his eyes on. He needs to say just one word, and he be Feng Qiubai's disciple. Even the emperor will have to show respect then. As for the other 3, they're Steward Zhua's friends. We can't show any disrespect even to them. Secretly snorting, the envoy still showed a flattering smile as he guided them inside. They soon arrived at a garden, a single pavilion laid in the middle with a stone table inside. Fatty sat in the seat of honor, and behind him stood Jade Flute Divine Sword. Feng Qiubai on one side of the fatty was Lei Yuntian, with Lei Yuding and Xiao Chui behind him. On the other, It was Kai Rong and his son, Kai, shouting. There were 2 additional empty stools around the table. For Zhuo Fan and Luo Yuncha, this must be a meeting of the 3 clan heads. Zhuo Fan rubbed his nose and took a step back, letting Luo Yunhai take the lead. Bro Zhuo. Luo Yunhai didn't understand, while Zhuo Fan smiled. Show them the dignity of a clan head, and don't let them look down on you. Luo Yunhai understood as Luo Yunchang showed a grateful look. It was clear this meeting was between the 3 clan heads and the Imperial family. But after the events over the past few months, all of Wingay City knew that Luo clan's true clan head was Zhuo Fan. Even the Imperial family might be considering Zhuo Fan as the master of the Luo clan. Zhuo Fan did this now, so that he did not exceed his authority, and was letting Luo clan come into the light. He wanted to state the fact Luo clan's clan head was still named Luo. Please, come in. The envoy saw the 3rd prince and bowed 90 degrees towards Zhuo Fan in a show of respect he had for his master's friend, but this had a different effect on everyone. The fatty was stunned. Since when were the Imperial family's guards so humble? Kai clan and Lei clan were of the same opinion when this guard came to invite them. He was brazen, cocky, and flaunting, not caring in the least who he was talking to. But towards the Luo clan, he treated them like guests. The 2 clans felt apprehensive in their hearts. They were even more envious. They were all clans of Wingay City, yet the treatment was worlds apart. Only Fang Qiubai smiled, guessing Zhuo Fan might have twisted facts to scare the envoy. But this only worked to admire him more. Under the envoy's polite call, the Luo clan stepped into the pavilion. Luo Yunchang greeted the fatty. I am Luo Yunchang. Greetings, Your Highness. On the way here, the envoy told them of his master. The others followed Luo Yunchang in showing respect. But Zhuo Fan just shrugged. The fatty only waved, not taking Zhuo Fan's disrespect seriously. Please sit. Luo Yunchang and her brother took a seat, while Zhuo Fan and Captain Pang stood behind them. Fatty threw a long look towards Zhuo Fan, secretly nodding. Great authority, but without any arrogance. He is a loyal subject. Fang Qiubai smiled with praise in his eyes. Zhuo Fan's conduct was etched in the 2's hearts. Wielding his martial prowess to protect his master, and courteous enough to defend his master's honor. In the eyes of the Imperial family, he was a rare and valuable official. The fatty began. I have invited the 3 clan heads today per the Imperial Edict to reveal to you the 1,000-years-old relationship between the 3 clans. Everyone was focused on Fatty's next words. The 3 clan heads must have each received an instruction from the previous clan head to not make an enemy out of each other, and perhaps even mentioned about helping one another. Fatty stood up. Moreover, the 3 clans' power must never leave Wingay City until the pearls shine. Kai Rong and Lei Yuntian watched the fatty in puzzlement. Luo Yunchang got a nod from her brother and also looked puzzled. Ha ha ha. In fact, this is an agreement between the founding Imperial family 1,000 years ago and the 3 clan heads of that time, known as Secret Pearl Order. Fatty smiled and his eyes flashed. Kai clan, Luo clan, Lei clan, and the 7 noble houses are the same. They are all loyal officials, founders of the empire. What? Like a bomb was thrown on them. The 3 clans' representatives were shell-shocked. They never thought that their origins were the same as the 7 houses. But why had they fallen so low that they could only stay in Wingay City as mortal clans? The fatty turned a bit bashful, guessing their thoughts. Sorry, this is what our human clan owes you. Sighing, Fatty continued. At that time, Tianyu Empire was just established and was shaky, with unrest among its people. The great ancestor and founder sent his 7 ministers across the kingdom to employ autonomous administration and settle the land. This gave them enough power to make them equal to the Imperial family. They later became the 7 noble houses. In just 20 years, the 7 houses grew exponentially, and their greed ignited a war among them. The Imperial family could no longer keep them in check and had to employ schemes in weakening them. The 7 houses were ultimately aware that there will be no winners in their war and ceased fire. But the aftermath was cruel. The people were suffering, the empire was mourning, and it was just one step away from collapsing. But how is this connected to us? Zhuo Fan frowned, taking a deep breath. Fatty straightened his back. Everyone, to be honest, your clans are founders of our empire. If your elders were still sitting in the imperial court, they would be no less famous than the 4 pillars. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. Four pillars were the support of the Tianyu Empire, leading the military, economy, politics, external affairs. They were the only ones capable of resisting the seven houses. There was a rumor. The four pillars' power was so strong it struck fear in the Imperial family. Imperial family, four pillars, and the seven noble houses represented the empire's highest power, but also restricting each other in a delicate balance. If one side tips, the balance would crumble and the empire would fall. No one could believe that their ancestors were so amazing and capable of becoming the empire's four pillars of today. The fatty lost his smile at this point. The great ancestor at the time set up the secret Pearl Order with your ancestors to prevent another war from breaking out among the seven houses. The emperor used all kinds of excuses to demote your ancestors to Windgaze City and become common clans. But the imperial family could, at any time, combine the three clans into a great clan equal to the rank of the seven houses. This would occur only when war broke out again between the seven houses. Then this new clan would add balance to the equation to save as many lives as possible. But even if an eighth house were to appear, it cannot stop the seven houses. Luo Yunchang voiced her doubts. Shuafan cut Fatty off with a smile before he could speak. Young miss, the eighth house's purpose isn't to stop them but to add balance. A war breaks out only when one side has absolute confidence in winning it. But a war in which winning was possible at a heavy cost won't happen unless the two sides hated each other to the bone. Sometimes, when two powers starts a conflict, it is very easily solved, since no one wants to suffer irreparable damages. Luo Yunchang nodded, and the fatty praised Zhuofan. Steward Zhua is amazing. Luo clan will rise for sure in your capable hands. Kai Rong's lips twitched from the regret he felt. If he hadn't offended Zhuofan, he might have been able to rope him. This kid was a genius, seen once in 1,000 years. Third prince, we know of the relationship between the three clans. What I want to know is, how are you going to secure our rise to the 8th seat? Zhuofan stared at the fatty. Raising his brow, the fatty nodded in admiration. That's Steward Zhua for you. Hitting the nail on the head. Of course, the imperial family's power is enough to make a clan rise in a short time. The hard part, though, is how to keep it hidden. Zhuofan smiled. You think the seven houses would just watch us rise up to their level? Kai Rong and Lei Yuntian's backs went cold with sweat. They were elated that their ancestors had been imperial court officials. They were thinking, my clan will receive the imperial family's support to rise above a common clan. But Zhuofan brought them down to earth, not to mention growing stronger. The seven houses wouldn't even let the new clan grow to their level. They would be destroyed while they were at their weakest. Kai Rong and Lei Yuntian were grateful for Zhuofan's reminder. The imperial family wanted the seven houses' power and balance, but the three of them wanted to survive. Kai Rong had to admire Zhuofan's prudent mind. Chapter 49. Three Clans as One. Chapter 49. Three clans as one. After muttering under his breath for a while, the fatty spoke. This was settled at the moment the secret order was given. What is a clan's foundation? Spirit stones? Pills? No, these are support items. Strength is the best guarantee of a powerful clan. Veiled Dragon Pavilion has its 9 outstanding elders. Hell Valley has its 12 elders as overseers. Each of the 7 houses has its own strength. Also, every one of them has invited a venerable. Along with other secret weapons they're holding, even we, the imperial family, don't dare stir them. Fatty's eyes then shined like a radiant sun. At the time, in order to paralyze the 7 houses, Great Ancestor confiscated the wealth of your clans. This is why none of you has any decent cultivation method and martial arts. It was also because of this reason the 7 houses withdrew their surveillance on you 500 years ago. Yet none of them would have thought that you all are still holding a low, profound ranked martial art. Fatty showed a sneaky smile. With this martial art, all of you can become strong. Even the 7 houses only have 1 or 2 profound ranked martial arts. The 3 clans were amazed. When did they have such a martial art? If they had it, they'd have used it to grow strong by now. Only Zhuofan's eyes rolled about. Recalling something with a vague smile, Fatty's hand flashed and revealed a green jade slip. This is a low mortal ranked martial art, combining art. By itself, it holds no value. But if you use it along with your clan's spirit ranked martial arts you inherited, You can combine them into a single martial art of the profound rank. In other words, Luo clan's Returning Dragon Palm, Kai clan's Wind Kick, and Lei clan's Lightning Finger were originally one single martial art that the Imperial family split among the three clans, and only the Imperial family knew the way to restore it. Zhuofan squinted. Fatty was shocked, but then nodded. Steward Zhua is wise. There aren't many martial arts which are capable of splitting other martial arts, and the number of martial arts that can restore them are even lesser. I didn't think Steward Zhua would know of this. If Imperial Father hadn't mentioned it, I would have never found out. Zhuofan just smiled, perhaps because the splitting martial arts were uncommon even at the mortal rank. Each sect in the sacred domain seized them. They split their core martial arts to prevent degenerate disciples from spreading it. Only the sect leader's disciple had the right to learn the entire set of martial arts. Zhuofan turned to look at Kai clan and Lei clan. They were startled, but their eyes showed deep regret, perhaps because they were negligent in safeguarding their inherited martial arts and let the Hell Valley steal them. Especially with regards to Kai clan, who were quick to give it away. It must be really eating Kai Rong inside right now. Clan heads, please take out your inherited martial arts. Fatty placed the jade slip on the table with a smile, but only Luo Yuncheng took out her clan's martial art. After Lei Yuding got to know of Yang Ming's treachery, she gave back the Returning Dragon Palm to Luo Yuncheng. But the other clan heads looked at each other in shame. Fatty frowned as he stared at them, sighing. Lei Yuntian cupped his hands. Your Highness, I was unable to protect my ancestors' martial art from Hell Valley's thieving hands. I accept your Highness' punishment. What? Fatty slapped the table. Kai Rong also cupped his hands. Your Highness, I am the same. Fatty's body shivered in rage. Why you? Just how are you both clan heads? Have you forgotten your ancestors' instructions? You should have defended it with your lives. The two kneeled. Please forgive us, Your Highness. Fatty sighed as he scratched his head. Kai Rong peeked at him. Your Highness, can't the Imperial family bestow us another profound ranked martial art? Bestow your mom. Fatty couldn't hold it in and began raining curses and spitting all over Kai Rong's kneeling figure. What do you take profound ranked martial arts for, cabbage? Even the Imperial family has only 4 of them, and they're each registered. If I take one out, everyone will know. How are your clans gonna rise then? You dumb pig, are you tired of living? Fatty gave Kai Rong a round of slapping, then stomped his feet. Kai Rong curled up and shivered on the ground. What now? What now? The secret pearl order is ruined. Fatty paced around. Zhuofan smirked, and 2 jade slips appeared with a flash in his hand. Third Prince, there's no need to worry. I have their clan's martial arts. What? The 2 clan heads shouted in unison, staring dumbfounded in Zhuofan's direction. Kai Rong in particular, having not witnessed Zhuofan's prowess, was incredulous at what was happening. Lei Yuntian gave Zhuofan a thankful nod. If not for him, not only Lei clan wouldn't recover, they'd even be executed in a fit of anger by Third Prince. Ha ha ha. Steward Zhua, you truly are amazing. I see why Elder Ju of Veiled Dragon Pavilion speaks so highly of you. Fatty was overjoyed and ran into Zhuofan for a bear hug. If not for you, I would have failed Imperial Father's task. I owe you one. Smiling, Zhuofan shook his head. This is all for the Luo clan. Yes, right, for the Luo clan and for me. Ha ha ha. Fatty slapped Zhuofan's shoulder, then gathered the 4 jade slips. Now that we have the martial arts, next is the merger of the 3 clans. According to the Great Ancestor's secret pearl order, 2 clans are to merge with the strongest, and the profound ranked martial art will be in the clan head's care. As such, Your Highness, Kai Rong seemed hyped as he jumped to his feet. Luo clan has little strength and only 4 members, and Lei clan is on the verge of collapse. Only my Kai clan is flourishing. As such, I will begrudgingly accept this responsibility and support them under my clan's wing. As of now, I will take Lei and Luo clan as Kai clan's disciples and assist the Imperial family in fulfilling the secret edict. As he finished speaking, Kai Rong reached for the jade slips, but a rough hand stopped him. Lei Yuntian glared at him as he asked Kai Rong, how can a bone-tempering cultivator be enough to act as clan head? Humph, so what? Based on strength, my clan is the best. Kai Rong raised his brows. Don't be so sure. Lei Yuntian sneered at Kai Rong and looked at Lei Yunting. She showed a proud smile and stepped forward. Clan head Kai, in this last month, I gathered all the scattered Blackwind Mountains men. We have 600 men. Half of them are in chi condensation. Based on strength alone, the Kai clan is weaker. Ha ha, so what if you're strong? You're just bandits. Kai shouting laughed at her. Lei clan is but a rabble of thugs. If you take the role of clan head, we'll only be the 7 houses laughingstock. Never will we be able to reach their level. Who are you calling a thug? You want a piece of me? You say you're not, thug granny? In an instant, the Lei and Kai clans started fighting for the leader's position. Zhuofan was secretly sneering at the side. This new clan is just being established, and it was still a question if it could survive. Yet these bunch of idiots are plagued with delusions of grandeur that they could hold their own against the 7 houses. Fatty and Feng Qiubai mocked the quarreling clans with their eyes. Luo Yunchang's face burned in anger. They were fighting against each other while ignoring the Luo clan. It clearly showed that they thought little of her clan. Although they were but 4 members, they were still one of the 3 clans in the Edict. But these clans didn't even ask for their opinion. Bam! With that loud slap, the 2 clans stopped and turned to see the brat Luo Yunhai hitting the table. His face was stern and his eyes were steadfast, unlike his usual childish self. Even Zhuofan quirked an eyebrow. Why all this fuss? Luo Yunhai swept the people with his eyes and spoke with resolve. In this merger of clans, the only one worthy of the leader position is none other than my Luo clan. Luo Yunhai's declaration shocked them silly. Kai shouting mocked, what does a brat know? You're the weakest of us, nothing of worth at all. What gives you the right to lead us? Sneering, Luo Yunhai grinned. Everyone there recognized his look, the spitting image of someone they all knew very well. This made them turn their eyes to Zhuofan. Hell, Zhuofan ruined him. Zhuofan was quite piqued by this brat. Luo clan has no men, money, or pills. It only has us 4, masters and servants. Luo Yunhai looked at them with sparkling eyes. But our clan is the strongest because we have Steward Zhua. Luo Yunhai turned to Zhuofan with worship in his gaze. If Luo clan was to have any right to become the head, it would all be thanks to Zhuofan. His skills were obvious to anyone there. Even Veiled Dragon Pavilion was certain that if Zhuofan stayed with Luo clan, its rise was but a matter of time. Under the hopeful and worried gazes, especially Luo Yunhai's expectant look, Zhuofan shook his head. This kid hardly ever shows such great expectations from me. I can't disappoint him now, can I? Humph, Zhuofan is a mere steward. How can a person of low status like him be worthy to hold on to all our Kai clan's guards and wealth? Punk, our clan shall be the head. Don't. Kai shouting mocked but didn't finish as Zhuofan slapped the table, revealing the alliance agreement. Under the puzzlement of others, Zhuofan sneered, this is Luo clan and Veiled Dragon Pavilion's alliance contract. What? The fatty was so shocked his whole body trembled and was close to falling off his chair. Even the relaxed and uncaring Feng Qiubai behind him narrowed his eyes as he scanned the sheepskin with shock. Veiled Dragon Pavilion was one of the 7 noble houses. The only ones worthy of signing an alliance agreement with them were others from the 7 houses, while the rest only had the right to sign a subsidiary agreement. But now, with a deep look, Feng Qiubai sighed as he asked Zhuofan, Kid, how did you do it? Recognized and valued as a hero? He nodded towards Feng Qiubai, then turned to the 2 clans and spoke in a cold tone. Let me tell you, even if this crappy secret pearl order never existed, as long as I'm here, Luo clan will ultimately rise to the ranks of the 7 houses. You're of no help to us. On the contrary, you are a burden. Zhuofan sneered. The 2 other clans lost their voices in shock with rosy cheeks. Luo Yunchang raised her chin proudly. Luo Yunhai was grinning from excitement, watching Zhuofan with veneration. Chapter 50 Merger. Chapter 50 Merger. Mulling over, the fatty traced his hand on the alliance agreement. He found Zhuofan's strength exceeding his expectations, as it was not a simple matter to gain such an alliance agreement. Even if Long Jiu was in favor of him, an elder didn't hold much sway in the Veiled Dragon Pavilion. Fatty sighed. Steward Zhua, I am saddened by seeing you live in such a poor clan. Why don't you come help me? Just think about it. To the shock of everyone present, The third prince expressed his intention in recruiting Zhou Fan. It amazed them that Zhou Fan was so highly sought after that even the Imperial family was willing to have him. Luo Yunchang stood up nervously, thinking Zhou Fan would be snatched away. Zhou Fan smiled and shook his head. Third prince, you're overestimating me. Even in the Luo clan, am I not doing my best for the Imperial family? Fatty quirked an eyebrow and smiled. All right, I'll leave it at that. He then turned to the rest. It's decided. The Luo clan will be the leader of the three clans merger. Kai and Lei clans are to assist the Luo clan in fulfilling the secret pearl order. Your Highness. Kai shouting was disgruntled and wanted to voice his objection, but Kai Rong gripped his arm. He didn't understand the reason, but Fatty's pin-sized eyes left him shivering from the killing intent. Secret pearl order was a millennium-old secret plan, and it held great importance to the Imperial family. It was understandable that they would only choose the best clan for the position of leader if the three clans were equal. The Imperial family would have taken his objection into consideration, but Zhou Fan took out the alliance agreement, making all dissent moot. It turned the Luo clan into the best choice in implementing the secret edict for the Imperial family. If even with this, the other clans voiced their discontent, the Imperial family would deal them with a heavy hand, just as Zhou Fan said. The Luo clan had all the power it needed to bring the secret edict to fruition. This, in turn, made the other two clans their vassals. If they felt that being a vassal was unpleasant, the Imperial family would finish them off with a mere swipe. Kai shouting let the matter drop. Yet the discontent never left his face. He could only follow Kai Rong's actions, and submitting. Fatty nodded, then turned to Lei Yuntian to see if he had objections. The old man said, Your Highness, be at ease. I will give my all in assisting Yunhai and Yunchang. As Cloud Manor fell because of me, I will become a servant to atone for my crimes. Fatty nodded at his sincerity. Good. Since there are no objections, the three clans shall unite. Understood. Everyone bowed. We shall now withdraw. Steward will stay for a while. Zhou Fan was unclear as to the reason why, but remained nonetheless under the departing and curious gazes of the rest. The Fatty let out a breath, then rushed to Zhou Fan and dragged him to an empty place in the garden. Third prince. Zhou Fan frowned. Fatty waved. Just follow my lead. Fatty then pointed two fingers at the sky as he shouted. I, Tianyu Empire's third prince, Yuan Song, vow to heaven to become sworn brother with Luo clan's steward, Zhou Fan, to share life and death together and never betray him. Your turn. Fatty watched Zhou Fan impatiently. Zhou Fan was confused, but becoming sworn brothers with third prince had to be a good thing, so he went along. I, Luo clan steward, Zhou Fan, vow to heaven to become sworn brother with Tianyu Empire's third prince, Yuan Kong. If he doesn't betray me, I won't either. Fatty muttered when he heard the last part. Brother, you sure are meticulous. Fatty, it's not that I don't trust you, but the pugilistic world is too vicious. Zhou Fan shrugged, not having any restraint in calling him Fatty. Since no one was here, the Fatty himself wouldn't blow a gasket over this. Plus, this kid needs me to complete the secret edict. Zhou Fan was perfectly clear when to be fierce and when to be scared, just as he foresaw. The Fatty nodded instead of getting angry. Call me how you like it. I feel much better since we are sworn brothers now. Zhou Fan looked at him in puzzlement. Fatty sighed. Do you remember our bet from yesterday? The winner gets to have Sister Kuei. I lost the bet, but I still can't let it go. So I decided to become sworn brothers with you. This way I won't go after my brother's wife, and it would help me forget about Sister Kuei too. Zhou Fan rose an eyebrow, incredulous that the Fatty wanted to become sworn brothers over this. Fatty, there's nothing between me and that girl. She was just making excuses. What, is that true? Fatty even jumped 10 meters in joy. Then can I still chase her? Nodding, Zhou Fan showed a vague smile. Go, go. Annoy the little lass to death. Awesome, brother. You are indeed my sworn brother. Ha ha. Fatty was skipping and whooping in joy. Now that the bet was off, he could chase Long Kuei to his heart's content. Zhou Fan smiled. Fatty, what does the secret pearl order truly say? The Fatty dropped his smile, watching Zhou Fan with embarrassment. Brother, didn't I say it already? This plan is very delicate, and even the goal is fair. But, Zhou Fan squinted, it lacks ambition. So much so that an emperor of a founding empire would never come up with it. The great ancestor showed great ambition when he established the empire. Zhuofan wasn't gullible enough to believe the secret Millennium Order was limited to restricting the 7 houses and maintaining a balance of power. Fatty shook his head. I do not know either. This was what I've been told. Zhuofan stared him down but discovered nothing else. Maybe he knew nothing, or maybe his acting was top-notch. Then how did Hell Valley catch wind of this 1,000-year-old secret edict? Zhuofan smiled. All of Hell Valley's actions were against the secret edict while looking innocent doing it. They were afraid of the Imperial family's investigation. Fatty frowned. Reason points to the contrary, but there are many spies in the Imperial capital. The information about secret edict might have leaked. It remained hidden for 1,000 years and only now it gets leaked? Zhuofan frowned. Maybe leaking it is part of the secret edict's contents? The fatty shivered and went wide-eyed. Zhuofan smirked. It's clear now. Never mind. It works in Luo clan's benefit anyway. So there's no need to poke my nose in it. There's no need to worry over nothing. Ha ha ha. Zhuofan waved as he left. Fatty, I'll be going. We'll meet again if we get the chance. A voice rang in Fatty's ear as Zhuofan's figure distanced. This kid is perhaps too sharp, scary even. Whoosh. It was Feng Qiubai in his blue robe. Feng Qiubai muttered. The more I watch him, the more he resembles someone. Who? Fatty asked. Feng Qiubai's eyes flashed. Zhuge Changfeng. The leader of 4 pillars, Prime Minister Zhuge Changfeng? Fatty was in shock. Are you saying Zhuofan? Nodding, Feng Qiubai smiled. Songer, becoming sworn brothers with him was the best decision you made in your life. One day, he will become one of your 4 pillars, helping you rule. The fatty was stunned, watching Zhuofan getting further away as ambition flickered in his eyes. Zhuofan returned to the small courtyard and saw the others waiting outside. What's wrong? Did Third Prince say something? Luo Yunchang was worried. He refused Veiled Dragon Pavilion's invitation, but this was the Imperial family. With just a nod, he could become an official with the support of the Imperial family. Secretly smiling, Zhuofan said, Fatty told me to do my best in fulfilling the secret edict. Luo Yunchang covered Zhuofan's mouth and looked around before saying, How can you call Third Prince like that? Be careful, or he might take your life. He won't. He still needs me. Zhuofan dismissed her worry and even gave a thumbs up to Luo Yunhai. Your performance was perfect, worthy of a clan head. You made me proud. Please, didn't I learn it all from bro? Luo Yunhai stuck up his chin. It was clear the bro he referred to was Zhuofan. Everyone laughed, and Luo Yunchang showed a relieved smile. Dad, can you see? Yunhai has grown up. He can shoulder the honor and glory of the Luo clan. Luo Yunchang looked at the sky with sparkling eyes. On the second day after the meeting, the new clan was established with Luo clan at the helm. The name was, of course, Luo clan. Zhuofan, with the Imperial family's support, had no trouble becoming the head steward of the clan. Handling all affairs, he appointed Lei Yuntian as Luo clan's Grand Elder and Kairong as the second elder while keeping Old Pang as the captain of the guards, leading the Kai clan's guards. Lei Yuding was made the leader of the Shadow Corps, taking Blackwind Mountain's bandits under her, and in charge of intelligence gathering and training assassins. Because of the Imperial family's decree, the Veiled Dragon Pavilion and Hell Valley were banned from entering the Windgaze city. The rest of the 7 houses remained within their borders, thus making this city belong to the Luo clan alone. As for the Luo clan's estate, Kai clan suggested for it to be the former Kai Manor, but Zhuofan had other plans. Blackwind Mountain, the place where a natural array took form, and so, another Devil Mountain was established, and Zhuofan's plans advanced one step at a time. Chapter 51, 4 Pillars Leader. Chapter 51, 4 Pillars Leader. The slums in the Imperial capital were the darkest corners of the empire. Seedy, good, devious, and all other kinds of people mixed in here, along with the down shacks painted a perfectly wretched image. Any self-respecting man who had some money on the side would never choose to live here. Only those living from one day to the next, and the truly poor stayed here, waiting for the day that would rob them of their lives. Yet in the worst corner of the slums was a courtyard the people feared to the point of being afraid to step through its doors. Even if the vilest and most sinister man was to wander by happenstance here, he would be warned to leave this house. This courtyard was unoccupied, but at night, there were eerie whispers coming from it. some brave to investigate, but it was as if their traces in this world vanished the moment they stepped foot inside recently. Some bone-tempering and even a profound heaven expert charged in, fearing no evil afterwards. Well, there was no news. They were gone all the same. From that moment, the courtyard became a taboo, avoided by the strong and weak alike on a full moon night, when the slums had turned unusually quiet. The people had gone home earlier and as far away from the demonic courtyard as possible, but it was then that a faint lantern lit up in the courtyard. It was akin to ghost fire, flickering on and off in a ruined room of the courtyard. An elderly with white temples sat in a pleased manner on a tutor's chair, waving a goose-feathered fan. His half-lidded eyes flashed here and there, and his mouth was twisted at the corners. It was as if the world's suffering and happiness were beneath him. Two old men stood behind, one with black hair and the other with white hair. Their eyes were closed, but their powerful auras identified them as experts, preventing any living creature from approaching 100 meters around them. Even a harmless beetle would find its tiny heart reeked with fear. Whoosh! A sound broke the silence, and a black-clothed man suddenly appeared outside the room. He had a bamboo hat that hid his features. The sitting old man stopped fanning and smiled. "Valley Lord, you. How is it progressing?" The bamboo-wearing man was Hell Valley's Valley Lord, Yuanshan. Sighing, Yuanshan shook his head. A dozen years of painstaking effort was ruined. The Emperor ordered for Hell Valley to stay away from Windgaze City. The same goes for the other houses. He must have sensed something. Oh. The old man raised an eyebrow with a smile. The Emperor is planning on enacting the secret Pearl Order? My guess is yes. Yuanshan's face grew angry. They got luck on their side last time. But next time, it won't be so simple. Emperor wants to raise the 8th house, but we shall see if the clan can live to see that day. Ha ha ha, Valley Lord, you. Ease your anger. A loss is a loss. Why make excuses? The old man was still calm, yet his words were sharp and filled with disdain. Hell Valley is one of the 7 noble houses, yet it can't even deal with 3 common clans. The time of its fall must be close at hand. Yuanshan snapped, his power exploding. Peak profound heaven cultivation smashed the windows to splinters. He unleashed all of it to pressure the old man. Zhuge Changfeng. You were the one who told me of the contents of the secret Pearl Order. It was also you who said the Emperor wants to help in the rise of the 8th house. The dozen years plan also came from you. So how can you speak like this? Yuanshan bellowed. Go to hell. The smile never left the old man's face, still sitting calmly and fanning slowly. Boom. Just when the pressure was drawing near Zhuge Changfeng, the black and white elders behind him opened their eyes at that moment. One's eyes flashed black while the other's flashed white. A ripple echoed outwards and clashed with Yuanshan's display of power, creating a jarring sound. The entire slums shook. Yuanshan felt a sweetness in his throat and spat blood. As his face paled, the 2 elders closed their eyes again, while Zhuge Changfeng swayed the fan like nothing had happened. Still sporting that ever-present smile, Yuanshan watched the black and white elders incredulously. Young elders? Zhuge Changfeng nodded. Valley Lord, you sure is knowledgeable. These seniors haven't shown up over the past century. I find it amazing that you still recognize them. Grinding his teeth in anger, Yuanshan panted while also spitting blood now and then. But the look he had when he turned to the elders was now one of fear. You are worthy of being Tianyu's #1 sage. 4 pillars as leader, Prime Minister Zhuge. To be able to make these monsters leave their mountain, not even that Feng Qiubai from the Divine Dragons can compare to you. Ha, Valley Lord, you is exaggerating. I am not worthy of such a title. I do not dare face the Imperial family in the open just yet. Zhuge Changfeng let out a short laugh, but the confidence he exuded was unshakable. Yuanshan snorted and muttered. Prime Minister Zhuge is as modest as he is arrogant. Who in the Tianyu Empire can match your power? Not even the Imperial family can. Sigh, I can see why you failed in Windgaze City. In this world, strength and weakness aren't obvious at a glance. Zhuge Changfeng sighed as he looked at the sky. Furthermore, I am not the #1 sage in Tianyu. If not you, then who? That person above me. Zhuge Changfeng pointed upward with a grave expression. Yuanshan disdained. You're talking about that senile emperor? Senile? Zhuge Changfeng chuckled. I've been a prime minister in the Imperial court for 40 years now, and I still can't read him? Valley Lord you, go back. Make sure to not cause any further trouble. Zhuge Changfeng swayed his fan as his countenance went back to normal. Be careful to not give that old man the perfect chance to remove you for good. Humph. The Imperial family's power is hardly enough to deal with my Hell Valley. Yuanshan grinned, but when he saw the cold look in Zhuge Changfeng's eye, he didn't continue. He just cupped his hands and vanished in the night after Yuanshan left. Zhuge Changfeng took a deep breath and looked to the heavens. Your Majesty, what is your plan? What is the secret pearl order? 3 months later, in the misty forest at the foot of Blackwind Mountain, Zhuo Fan stood near a frigid blood pool, holding a gourd. His hands performed signs and red dots flew from the pool into the gourd. A smile tugged at Zhuo Fan's face as he watched the wiggling red dots. This blood pond was something Zhuo Fan made to raise the frigid pool snow worm. Though its name should more aptly be frigid pool bloodworm, Zhuo Fan used a secret art from the 9 Serenity's secret records to train this particular demonic creature. So it not only retained the parasitic ability of the frigid pool snow worm, but it also connected to Zhuo Fan through telepathy. It could now work in tandem with him in performing a secret and evil magic art from the 9 Serenity's secret records. The blood curse was a demonic cultivator's way of controlling his men. Once he put the blood curse on someone, they had to obey him for life. If not, the blood curse would flare up and the victim would die of blood explosion. A cruel and savage ending, but the blood curse had a fatal flaw. If the target was stronger than the caster, the later would be devoured. This wasn't anything good for Zhuo Fan, but now that Zhuo Fan had the bloodworm, this flaw could be eliminated. Since the bloodworm lived in the target's body, they would never be able to remove the blood curse. With this special demonic creature, Zhuo Fan would be in control of a large group of experts to assist him. If anyone heard of this, they'd come to kill Zhuo Fan themselves, even Radiant Stage experts. This demonic creature was an abomination, an affront to heaven. Any listener would shiver hearing one could make any expert into a slave. With a maniac grin on his face, Zhuo Fan took the gourd filled with bloodworms and left Misty Forest. He performed a hand sign and the forest's fog turned bloody, barring any entry. This was his rearing grounds. Why would he ever let another find it? Plus, with the natural array here, he could still set up some decent defensive array. Even without such an amount of spirit stones. To the east of Blackwind Mountain was the Azure Dragon position under the wood attribute. It was a place filled with vitality. As such, Zhuo Fan set up a 5th grade array, Poison Dragon Array. Poisonous thickets grew inside the array, and the miasma above them would never scatter. Even a profound heaven expert would find it hard to escape. With his life to the west was the White Tiger position under the metal attribute. It was a place filled with sharp and overgrown plants. Zhuo Fan set up a 5th grade array, Dazzling Gold Array. 9 suns shined brightly within the array in every direction that no one could walk with their eyes open. Each ray of golden light was like a sharp sword, capable of robbing people of their lives. Yet incorporeal. To the south was the Vermilion Bird position of the fire attribute, filled with burning chi. Zhuo Fan set the 5th grade array, Black Flame Array. The fires within it were demonic flames that corroded bones. When it entered one's body, it would be hard to remove, and it wouldn't stop gnawing until the target was burned to ashes. To the north was the Black Tortoise position of the water attribute, a place filled with piercing chills. Zhuo Fan set up the 5th grade array, Ice Shadows Array. Howling winds blew within the array's territory, forming endless illusions. Anyone who entered it would lose their way easily and freeze to death under the bone-piercing coldness that seeped into the victim's body. Zhuo Fan didn't tell anyone about the 4 new arrays. But since today was the day of his departure, he had to give the array's method of control to those he trusted. Are you willing? Captain Pang was stunned. Then he was overjoyed. Truly? Nodding, Zhuo Fan raised the jade slip. This is a mid-profound ranked demonic method, Wraith Art. It is unlike other cultivation methods. It is a cultivation method for the body, ignoring one's talent for cultivation or his constitution. Just that cultivating it will make your life a living hell. It's no different from being boiled alive. And once you start, you can never stop or your soul will perish. Captain Pang licked his dry lips, yet he wasn't afraid. His eyes only held excitement, no worries. As long as I can become strong, no torment shall best old Pang. Captain Pang snatched the jade slip as he shouted. Zhuo Fan reminded him. The horrors you will experience from cultivating it aren't something you can fathom. Maybe you will be under such a pain that your mind will collapse and die in the end. This is a mid-profound ranked cultivation method, matching a high-profound ranked cultivation method. But with the process being so excruciating, many great demonic cultivators never even dared to touch it. Choose wisely. Waving his hand, Captain Pang's eyes flickered. Brother Zhua. Old Pang's only torment in this life was to see clan head die before me and unable to stop it. Now, my greatest wish is to protect young miss and young master. Captain Pang looked gratefully. Brother Zhua, thank you for giving me this chance to have no more regrets. Zhua Fan's heart shivered as he nodded. His eyes held respect. The next time we see each other, I hope to see a powerful old Pang and not a corpse. Ha ha ha, no worries. I am stubborn, not one to die from just this. Captain Pang laughed and squeezed Zhua Fan in a bear hug with moist eyes. Brother, come back soon. Luo clan won't be the same without you. Patting Zhua Fan's shoulder, Captain Pang left with Luo Yunhai. Per Zhua Fan's instructions, Lei Yuding came soon after. Miss Lei, how was the task I gave you? Zhua Fan smiled. Lei Yuding blushed with a nod. Brother Zhua, the 610-year-old children you asked me to gather are almost here. They all are high talents and await your teachings. Zhua Fan eyed her, then nodded. How did you know that I wanted to teach them? Lei Yuding spoke with confidence. I know you too well to believe that you helped those orphans out of the goodness of your heart. So I guessed you wanted to train them as Luo clan's guards and make me their leader. At her words, Zhua Fan recalled something inside. Goodness? I once raised an orphan out of kindness, and look where it got me. Didn't he betray me in the end? Zhua Fan's eyes flashed coldly at that point, scaring Lei Yuding. Miss Lei. Zhua Fan held a jade slip. This is a mid-spirit ranked cultivation method, elusive shadow art. Cultivate it and then give it to those you trust to form the shadow core, protecting the clan in the dark. Begin with the 600 children the same way I taught you. Use the worst of them as guards, the average for the shadow core, and hand the best among them over to Captain Pang to train them in secret. Pass him my word, he'll understand. Lei Yuding took the jade slip with a blank look, then stared at Zhua Fan, her heart uneasy. Why not do it yourself? I'm leaving. What? Lei Yuding asked. Why? Zhua Fan was forced to retell his reasons. Lei Yuding nodded, but before she went out the door, she pecked Zhua Fan's cheek. He was floored, watching her dash away in a blink. What is going on? Do all women like to peck? Next was Lei Yuntian's turn. Zhua Fan explained to him his affairs, and Lei Yuntian took his instructions to heart in an honest manner. Although he was the Grand Elder, he was clear Zhua Fan controlled everything. Elder Lei. Zhua Fan took out another jade slip. This is the profound ranked martial art I recorded after merging the 3 clans' martial arts, Thunderwind Sweeping Dragon Art. Since this is part of the Imperial family's Secret Pearls Order, this will be the Luo clan's best martial art on the surface. As the Grand Elder, you need to be diligent in practicing it. Lei Yuntian raised an eyebrow but nodded. Zhua Fan put an emphasis on the words on the surface, making it clear he had other high-ranked martial arts that the Imperial family was unaware of. His secret weapons. A day may come when the Imperial family might discover that the 8th house they raised was out of their control. But at that time, it would already be too late. Zhua Fan was young, but his wisdom and shrewdness drew the old man's admiration. Rest assured, Steward Zhua, I will be the best Grand Elder there is. Lei Yuntian laughed, reaching an understanding with Zhua Fan. Even without Zhua Fan's reminder, he was clear what it meant to stand close to a ruler, and that the Imperial family wasn't to be trusted. But Zhua Fan gave this old man the nerve to tangle with this behemoth, right? Steward Zhua, what of Kai clan's father and son? Lei Yuntian frowned. It's already been 3 months since the merger of the 3 clans, but I still feel that the Kai clan is of a different thought, always acting suspiciously. The Blackwind Mountains guards have people from the Kai manor. I fear. Let them. Zhua Fan waved with a smile. The Kai clan is part of the Secret Pearl Order. If we deal with them, we'll earn the Imperial family's ire. But if they betray us first, Lei Yuntian's eyes flashed with a nod. You're amazing, Steward Zhua. to plan so far ahead. Zhuo Fan squinted as killing intent filled his eyes. On the morning of the second day, Zhuo Fan left Blackwind Mountain all by himself. On the mountain peak, Luo Yunchong, Lei Yuding, and Lei Yuntian, along with other Luo clan members, watched him leave. All except Kai clan's duo, but in the forest halfway up the mountain, Kai Rong and his son watched Zhuo Fan's retreating figure with cold eyes. Humph. Without this wretched punk, Luo clan will fall from grace. Kai shouting snorted. That stinky girl, Luo Yunchong, made eyes with Zhuo Fan every single day, not sparing me even a glance. With Zhuo Fan gone, Blackwind Mountain is ours. Let's see her act haughty now. Sigh, one must give credit to Zhuo Fan for his rare talent. He has Veiled Dragon Pavilion on his left and Third Prince on his right, while he himself has the power to shake the three clans. All of Blackwind Mountain knows the true clan head of this merged clan is him. Kairong shook his head. The most unfortunate thing is that he chose to be against us. Since he is leaving, we might as well take everything back. Dad, what do we do? Kai shouting asked, shaking his head. Kairong said, don't be hasty. With Zhuo Fan gone, the Luo clan is nothing. The Lei clan is our true enemy. We need to ally ourselves and become stronger than the Lei clan. Chapter 53, Allbeast Mountain Range. Chapter 53, Allbeast Mountain Range. In the shadow of a large forest, a black-robed figure stood on the precipice of a mountain. His eyes took in the view of a large city gate with 3 golden words inscribed on it, Blue Expanse City, raising the corner of his mouth. The black-robed man left as the wind scattered 2 piles of black dust. 15 minutes later, the man arrived before the city gates. Hold, where's your pass? With a clank, 2 city guards crossed their spears before the man as they released their 6th-layer chi condensation cultivation, taking out a metal tablet with the serene character inscribed on it. The black-robed man let them see it. The guards nodded and let him pass. Genner. The black-robed man quickened his pace, but after 100 meters, he turned his head at the guards, eyeing them with disdain, utterly useless. The man raised his head and exposed his face. It was Zhuo Fan. It had been a month since he left Luo clan, and this city was his first destination, Blue Expanse City. This place was Hell Valley's domain. Just how Veiled Dragon Pavilion placed its guards in the Windgaze City, so did Hell Valley in this city to avoid anyone recognizing him. Zhuo Fan put on a black robe. He braved through this deadly danger because he was left with no other choice. Who told the spiritual beasts to gather on the Allbeast Mountain Range near the Blue Expanse City? This was also why the security was so tight in this city, be it righteous or demonic cultivators. There were other external means to increase one's power besides the hard and arduous method of cultivation. Spiritual weapons, demonic treasures, spirit animals, demonic creatures, these were all external means but of significant importance. At the time of peril, it could save one's life. The late elder of Hell Valley was a good example. Condor Jianfan's soul-devouring crow had the purple lightning gold eye and could push back Veiled Dragon Pavilion's 3 elders' joint attack. Long Jia's 3rd-grade spiritual weapon was another, helping him push back 2 Hell Valley's elders with just a sword. It was obvious how important these external means were to cultivators. Spiritual beasts could be turned into demonic creatures or spirit animals. Righteous cultivators tamed them into spirit animals, while demonic cultivators tamed them into demonic creatures. Zhuo Fan's blood infant, which was born naturally, was an exception. The Blue Expanse City was taken by Hell Valley during the founding of the Tianyu Empire. As such, any cultivator wanting to get his spirit animal or demonic creature would have to obtain Hell Valley's approval, and Hell Valley used this as a pretext to set up a checkpoint half a mile around it to confirm everyone's identities, allowing entry to only those with a pass. But how could Zhuo Fan expose himself and offer himself up on a chopping block? So he killed 2 righteous cultivators outside, stole their pass, and waltzed right in. Humph. Hell Valley can only intimidate some shy disciples with this. You think this is enough to deal with a bold cultivator or a profound heaven expert? Zhuo Fan's mouth let out snide remarks as he walked on. He came all this way to Allbeast Mountain Range, looking for a rare 6th-level spiritual beast, Thunder Skylark. Entering Lightning Canyon could only be done through the purple lightning. Zhuo Fan was certain Long Jia's 3rd heaven purple lightning wasn't the same as the lightning from that place. or it would have reached the sixth heaven. That kind of power was a deterrence even for a Radiant stage expert, so before he cleared Lightning Canyon's restrictions, he had to first find a way to guarantee his life in that place. And the Thunder Skylark, a creature that lived by swallowing lightning, was a perfect choice. When he'd made it his demonic creature that matched the demon transformation art, he'd have no trouble getting in. Zhuo Fan hoped Lightning Canyon's purple lightning wasn't higher than sixth heaven, or not even the Thunder Skylark would survive repeated blows to its body and turn to ash. If that happens, then he'd only be waiting for his death. Zhuo Fan took a deep breath and picked up the pace. If not for Heavenly Emperor's remnant, he'd never dare go through such danger. Bam! As he walked, a black figure knocked into his chest. Zhuo Fan looked down to find a little beggar in shabby clothes. Zhuo Fan was enraged. But before he could curse, here came the little beggar's pleading voice. Please, don't shout. Zhuo Fan frowned. Then, from his back, a group of 30 chi condensation cultivators appeared because the beggar hid in front of Zhuo Fan. His black cloak was wide enough to hide the beggar. Any sign of him? None. What are you standing around for? Find him. If we don't find him, Master will have our heads. A steward cursed. The others only nodded as they scattered once they were gone. The beggar looked up with a relieved breath and patted his chest. Scared me to death. I didn't think I'd make it. Zhuo Fan ignored him and walked away. Brother. The beggar was stunned for a second, then swooped in to block Zhuo Fan's path. He had a dark and dirty face, but sported an extra big smile as he said, Thank you for earlier. If it weren't for you. But Zhuo Fan kept walking. The beggar stood there blinking, then hurriedly caught up with Zhuo Fan. Brother, did you come from outside the city? Can you take me outside, please? If you want to leave, do it alone. You don't need a pass to go out. Zhuo Fan dodged him. The little beggar's face was bitter as he bit his lip and sniffed twice as tears rolled down his cheeks. Brother, to be honest, I stole from them. If they catch me, I'm a goner. Please, take me outside. Smiling, Zhuo Fan eyed him, around 15-16 years old and a fourth-layer chi condensation cultivator. You're not weak for your age. There's no way a commoner can have such cultivation. Are you truly a beggar? The beggar stopped crying and his eyes darted everywhere as if looking for an excuse. Zhuo Fan continued with a smile. And even if you're sincere, why should I help you and offend a powerful clan? I see no reason why I need to help you. Zhuo Fan then shook his head and walked past him. The beggar stood frozen in his spot, not knowing what to do. He didn't think Zhuo Fan was pragmatic from the start. The beggar thought Zhuo Fan to be a kind youth since he helped him once. Don't you want to go to the Allbeast Mountain Range? The beggar shouted. Zhuo Fan halted his steps. All who come here are looking to go to the Allbeast Mountain Range. What else is here? Visiting Hell Valley's cemetery. The beggar was stunned by his words. This kid sure has an attitude. Isn't he afraid of being killed for cursing Hell Valley? But the more Zhuo Fan acted as such, the weirder the beggar's eyes turned. You'll have to wait for 3 months before going to Allbeast Mountain Range. Zhuo Fan stopped with a frown. Why? The beggar skipped to him with a smile. Let me tell you, the diamond sand is about to come out on Allbeast Mountain Range. These past months, Hell Valley sealed the whole mountain range for this precise reason. Diamond sand? Zhuo Fan was secretly overjoyed. The diamond sand was known as the blood of the earth, rare and difficult to obtain. It was used for refining 5th-grade spiritual weapons. But what made it even more valuable was that it was a flowing spirit metal, a perfect match for his blood infant. His blood infant was close to breaking through to bone-tempering stage, and he needed to refine its body. At that time, blood infant could switch between being corporeal and elusive, killing people without leaving tracks. Refining it with 100 spirit metals would turn it as hard as a demonic treasure, and it would become difficult to cause any harm to it. He could also achieve a similar result by refining blood infant with diamond sand. If he was able to do it, then he wouldn't have to worry about obtaining 100 spirit metals. And with a body refined from diamond sand, facing a profound heaven expert would be a cinch. Thinking of this, Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with excitement. The beggar saw through Zhuo Fan and coughed as he raised his head with pride. Let's make a deal. If you take me outside the city, I will take you to Allbeast Mountain Range. And when the diamond sand erupts, we can take advantage of their carelessness and steal a bit. Zhuo Fan secretly snickered. There was no way Hell Valley didn't prepare for this. But the fact that he had a guide to enter Allbeast Mountain Range without them knowing was a nice bonus deal. The beggar raised his hand, and Wink Chua Fan shook his head and slapped the beggar's hand. Haha, awesome. I finally found someone to take me out of this damnable place. The beggar laughed while jumping around. Brother, what's your name? Chua Fan. Chua Fan was blunt because he knew even though Hell Valley was aware of the Luo clan, his title as a steward wasn't well known, and the only one who knows that he killed 2 of their elders was Yang Ming. But would anyone believe him even if he said it? Chua Fan was confident that Yang Ming would let this matter fester inside him. If anyone knew that Elder Jian died at the hands of a chi condensation punk, yet he survived, his future would be bleak. If not cut short, moreover, even if he did speak up, Hell Valley would never announce it. Could they afford to lose any more reputation? The beggar laughed. Brother Zhua, call me Xiao Ning. Fine. Zhua Fan nodded, not carrying much because he knew it was fake. The beggar pouted, looking at him with a deep look full of curiosity. Zhua Fan gave him a different impression from all those he had seen before, simply mysterious.